Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia, Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
It's Gene Battaglia hosting the Mike Danger Show once again today. As Dan Dorian likes to kind of needle me on that. We welcome you into the Sports Bar, Rochester's only local daily sports talk show. Our phone number, 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326. Lots to talk about today. A different cast of characters. Back again for day number 3 here. Terrible take, Timmy, today.
Yeah, I'm back, ready to go. Feeling wonderful that it's Friday.
You sound like you're off mic. This all sounds different with the
This
3
does
mics.
sound different.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I am just here to make sure that we don't burn
maybe
down.
that's it. Maybe it's because we invited in a special guest. Well, how many shows is this?
Man,
6,
I don't
7?
know,
Yeah.
at least a half dozen.
Okay, you sound better than Tim in more ways than one.
Oh,
Mike Underwood, our buddy, Round Track Auto Sales,
Yes, sir.
sitting in today on the show. Before we get to everything here, let's tell you what we got coming up today. We just have one guest today, and that would be in the 4 o'clock hour, the voice of the Buffalo Sabres, Dan Dunleavy, returning. We had the opportunity to meet Dan last year during the Amherst playoff run. Said, hey, you want to come on? Sure, why not? He's happy to come on with us. He'll be talking some hockey with us, as certainly that was your headline story last night, and the Sabres begin. Can't call it the second half of the season because we're past that point. I guess the stretch run for Buffalo, what to expect. We will talk to Dan Dunleavy coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. We have time for your calls today at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. You can write to us on X, our handle, The Fan Rochester. You can stream us on Twitch and YouTube. You can leave a comment there on YouTube. You can leave a comment for us online. But as I say often, just know that you're not going to get that immediate gratification. We'll look at your tweets and comments when we go to break. Best way to reach us if you want to join us in real time, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. The table is set. Talking with you, Mike, as we're kind of coming on, and it kind of crystallizes it. It's like, hey, I haven't talked to you in depth about where we ended the Buffalo Bills season, but it's funny.
oh man.
I think we're all talked out. It's like we don't need to cover the ground of James Cook. We'll get to, he making some comments today.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But James Cook not being on the field the last drive, not getting enough pressure on Mahomes, not covering. So it feels like we're on to the 25 season here, Mike. Because you know what happens Monday? Everybody convenes in Indianapolis.
Combine. Let's go.
It is the shortest off season possible. It really is.
It certainly feels that way. It
2
feels
weeks,
like the Super Bowl just ended pretty much.
Yeah, 2 weeks of the off season here. So we'll certainly talk some Buffalo Bills today. We will talk some hockey as well. Mike and Tim, I want to just kind of start with the story from last night. That being, we have this divorce between ESPN and Major League Baseball?
Yeah, I wasn't ready for that. I had no idea that was what was going to play out. I've been watching baseball on ESPN for as long as I've been alive, essentially. So I don't think baseball or ESPN will be worse off with that move, but it's definitely something that is going to take some adjusting to as a fan at least.
That ESPN Sunday Night Baseball broadcast was phenomenal this past season.
Yeah,
that was a good product.
They've done a great job it's been since 1990. They've been the host of Sunday Night Baseball, and it's just gone.
It's interesting how this was put out there, that this was a mutual breakup, that this was two parties deciding. And you think automatically, okay, this is a sign of the times. This is baseball saying, we're going to walk away knowing that you have your Netflix, your Apple, your whatever out there that's ready to pony up perhaps more money. But then you read the trades today, awful announcing others, like, no, this is actually ESPN walking away.
Yeah, I was going to say that. You can't just assume that was MLB. It probably was ESPN. They did everything they could last season, especially to jazz up that product. They're doing the on-field player interviews, and they brought some interesting angles, I felt like, the last season or two. But there's only so much you can do, and the ineptitude of MLB will reign supreme.
Why is MLB? I thought baseball hasn't been better though. It's the product is, Mike, I would say, is as good as it's been since.
Oh, in some time for sure.
I careful if you're ESPN here. That's what I just gotta say. Like, how do you're shaking your head no?
No, I mean, to a point, but it's like you need a dance partner, and baseball has made some changes, but just has long-term just been resistant to any kind of, significant change.
I thought it was kind of curious, too. Like, normally something like this happens, you kind of go above board. Rob Manfred didn't do that.
No.
He's talking about basically how they don't talk enough baseball on ESPN, and that was one of the reasons that they walked away, which... Yeah, I guess if you're a baseball fan, I always find it kind of amusing that, hey, the NBA has all this program I'm looking right now. Like
right.
Every day in the afternoon, we're going to be talking about the NBA, and once the NBA is over, we're going to be talking about the WNBA, and not talking about the
way they structure things, too. With MLB, there is no exciting trade deadline stuff usually. I mean, there has been a long time. I feel like in the early 2000s, that was kind of a thing that's kind of gone by the wayside. The free agency's not as exciting like the NFL or the NBA. That's on them to kind of rework some of that stuff to make it, more exciting and digestible in the media.
Yeah.
I mean, the writing's kind of been on the wall for close to 10 years probably. Once they got rid of baseball tonight, it kind of shifted. They focused almost solely on NBA and NFL once that kind of happened. And they've had the rights, obviously, up until this season, but they don't really care about it unless it's a live sporting game.
It's what Major League Baseball did with their own network. If you're not familiar, the MLB Tonight show, it's basically like the Red Zone. And if you're a baseball fan, there's no question what you're watching. You're going to go over to the MLB network if you have that. And baseball just kind of stripped, and you're not really like the info guys in any sport don't mean as much when they get to the tube where, oh my gosh, we grew up like Peter Gammons is coming up next. I want to hear the latest rumors. No. Like now it's old news. You know what Schefter put out. You know what Sharani is putting out.
On Twitter for hours.
Yeah, you don't know. Yeah, it's all that stuff. We've got a lot to talk about. 866-4FAN. It's a Friday. We're a little open to whatever you want to talk about here today. First up, Dan calling in from Rochester. We had a hockey game last night. Dan, what'd you think? What's up, buddy?
Hey, dude, I gotta say, I fell out of love with hockey back when, the Devils won the Stanley Cup, back when Brian Johnson was, first or second year pro, right? They had, the lockouts, and, they do a horrible job marketing their stars and all of that. It was just crazy. But, last night, that was something. And, even my wife is watching it. She's like, how is this not a bigger sport stateside right now? And it's crazy. And I was talking to a couple of buddies at work that play for Fisher football, and they're like, we don't even like hockey, but last night was just something. We're going to start watching it. It's just last night was something seriously special. And I don't know how that sport is not more transcendent than what it is when you have, some of the stuff you have with, the NBA with the All-Star game and the load management and, you got to think after, I love the NFL like everybody else, but every Monday we're complaining about the officiating and what calls got blown. Last night was just raw emotion, love of the game, and just it had everything you wanted.
Yeah.
I'm just curious what the guys' thoughts were on that because, it was just I'm still in awe about it. I might even go back and watch it again.
Dan, thanks for the call, and it's a good place to start. I love you're talking to official football coaches, as we are the home of Fisher football. And
go Cards.
Did you play for Fisher?
No, but I did graduate from St. John Fisher College.
All right, so I was going to say, see, if you told me you played, I would have believed you.
Yeah, I wish. No, it wasn't in the cards.
A lot of people lie on their resume.
Yeah, I could, maybe.
The idea that hockey, well, there's a lot of reasons why. It's funny how, Dan, you brought up the Devils and Gianta, and if he was here, I would say, Tim, that style of play killed it for a lot of people. The neutral zone trap, where this was a wide open game. You had the Edmonton Oilers. You had a lot of fun. And then, we can't advance the puck. And that style of play, coupled with the rise of Jordan and everything, that, everything kind of flipped there.
Games went from 8-5 in the 80s to 3-1 in the 90s and early thousands. And if you're a diehard, it was still a good product and something that you're going to tune into. But for a casual fan looking for scoring and stuff like that, it was barren. But, even last night it was a low-scoring game, but you were tuned in all the way through the 70 minutes of hockey that were played, wondering who was going to break through next and what was going to happen and how we were going to get there. And I think that the style of play from this last week and a half of hockey has been profound for the sport. Like, I think that if they do it correctly, which is a tough ask, that this can catapult the NHL into something that they haven't seen in 30, 40 years.
Well, the problem here is now we're going to go back to the NHL.
Right.
And you're gonna watch this, and it's gonna be like, okay, that's not like what we just came off of.
Yeah,
you gotta lower your expectations. Particularly, hey, no offense to any Sabre fan, we all kind of just have to be self-aware to know that, okay, we're gonna tune into the Sabres, and you might see a turnover. Like, okay, this isn't what we saw on Thursday night. But to where the sport was, there are a lot of reasons. I'm gonna point to two. One being this: it's not an affordable sport. It just
I was just going to say that.
Kids, you really have to. I got to be careful here to talk about, privilege and everything else because nobody wants to hear that, but it's absolutely true. Ice time is rare, equipment is expensive, and I don't see enough from the NHL in terms of trying
youth
to reach
initiatives.
out. Yeah, youth
Yep.
initiatives.
NFL does it, NBA, MLB.
Yeah,
they don't seem to as much.
Right, and part of that is, hey, it's a lot easier to play those sports if you're a kid. It's
Right.
a lot
You
more
grab a
affordable.
basketball, a pair of shorts, and some shoes, you can play basketball. Hockey, if you're a goalie, the stick alone is like $600. So
It's crazy. Like,
you've got to figure out a way to make it affordable. Like, especially as you're growing up, you're going through that equipment every year, essentially. You're buying new equipment every year, 2 years. That's a full bag of stuff that you just simply don't need in other sports.
So kids have other options for winter sports. That's problem number one. Problem number two is we had a whole generation that kind of got lost on TV. That network doesn't even exist anymore. What was it? It was Versus to NBC Sports Network. And NBC Sports Network, it looked like it was, hey, let's go to the intermission. It looked like it was like shot in somebody's basement.
The Outdoor Life Network or whatever.
Oh, it was just
all that.
And so like getting on bigger platforms. And then last year getting, hey, it was two markets that not big. Like certainly Miami for hockey. It's a big market. I get it, but not known for hockey. But Edmonton, but people were totally into that. It was a great series. So maybe you can build off of that just a little bit. We do have this quote because I think he's become kind of a takesman. This is from PK Subban talking about how that was so good. Let's do this again.
To put it in perspective, this replaced All-Star Weekend. I don't think we can ever go back to All-Star Weekend. I don't. I really believe that after this, we have to consider doing this or something like this in replace of it. I competed in many All-Star games, loved it, and they were tremendous experiences, but nothing matches this. Nothing matches this on the growth scale, on the player scale, the performance scale, and on the product scale. At the end of the day, fans got to invest, and fans, I think, want to invest after this event. So hats off to them as they should.
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday, Mike, with Dennis Bernstein from the Fourth Period and SiriusXM, and just asked him a question like, "Hey, can we do away with the All-Star game because we don't need a skills challenge, we don't need this. That's not really hockey." And he brought up a point like, "Well, you do have it already scheduled, for the Islanders in 2007. You got the Olympics next year, but it got me thinking." Yes, we're all saying, yeah, let's do it again next year. You only do the Olympics once every 4 years.
Right.
You don't want to, overkill on anything. But I could live in a world where, okay, we're going to have the Olympics every 4 years, and then every other year, every 4 years, you would have the four nations, or by that point, maybe who knows where the world will be at. How many other nations are in this tournament by that point? My point being then maybe you get this sort of format, 1 year in the Olympics, next year, traditional All-Star game. Next year, four nations. Next year, All-Star. You get the recycle.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to grow the game, that'd be, a way to figure out how to do that would be one of the best ways to do that. You would figure. I mean, I'm a real casual fan, but I mean, I watched a lot of the game last night, and a lot of the Four Nations games are super interesting. I haven't watched a ton of hockey in a while. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a great product. The more eyes you could get on that, and the more frequency you could have of that, I would think would be great for hockey.
I think they've done a great job with this. They need to find a way to make it more permanent. I don't know if you do it every year. It might oversaturate the want of it. But I'm also wondering, as soon as it ended last night, you've got guys that want to be out there, but eventually, once this gets its legs, they're going to want money for it.
Yeah, I'm just doing this money signal in the camera here. Yeah.
You sit there and you get your 2 weeks off if you're not an all-star, and that's great. Ovechkin hates All-Star games. He wants to go home and do whatever he does in Russia for those 5 or 6 days. Now he's got 2 weeks to do it. He'll be retired by the time this is more relevant.
That's
but
different.
Like players like that.
Well, timeout. That's not the best example because Ovechkin was thinking about quitting the Capitals just so he could represent his country in the Olympics.
Sure.
So he felt that strong. That's the pull here when you're representing your country. And then, gosh, I mean, I think I'm going to give ourselves a pat on the back here, Tim, because I think we navigated we're talking sports. We acknowledge that there's also this whole political angle. And, you know, you're watching that last night and like, hey, we're changing lyrics to anthems. Okay, I didn't pick up that in real time, but then I'm looking at my phone like, I didn't even notice that last night. Great. Knock yourself out. I think most people, though, at the end of it, I was kind of happy that it wasn't all about that at the end. That was actually one of the best hockey games we've seen.
That was as good as a hockey game that, especially the overtime. Like USA should have won that 3 or 4 different times, and then they left the best player on the planet wide open.
Wide open. As soon as it went to his stick, I'm like, that's it.
He had so much time with that there was almost a 0% chance that he was missing. You could have put a second goalie in there, and it's still probably finding its way in the net. Like it's Connor McDavid with time.
But that's hockey. Like sometimes, like like literally, there was a bounce that like I thought it should have been a deflection right there, quickly in overtime. U.S. wins. Everybody kind of. It wasn't a game because of a big mistake. I thought you had your best star, McDavid, scoring the game winner. So what more can you ask for?
Doesn't get much better than that,
No,
right?
it does not. So now how do we follow that up? Well, we'll see the Sabres here coming up. That'll be Sunday. They take on where's it Saturday, Tim?
It's Saturday against the Rangers.
Saturday against the Rangers, forgive me. We have the Amerks tonight and tomorrow. And, it is an interesting topic, though, how hockey – Mike, I swear this is absolutely true. In the 90s, when Jordan was at his peak powers.
I was there. He's my favorite player of all time.
Yeah. The NHL was right on par.
Yeah,
it really
Lemieux
was.
and Yager and the Penguins and all that, the big run. I remember that. I mean, it was good.
Yeah, and then the Devils come along. Then there's a lockout, and you still have Gary Bettman. I wish Gary Bettman would actually step aside.
Yeah, the NHL just feels mismanaged even more so than like MLB, right? As a super casual fan, I mean, that's kind of the thing. Another thing I think, which is the Four Nations and the popularity of it, they just kind of lucked up into it. Didn't they just kind of like throw it out there? I mean, there's no way they could have predicted it.
Did they? That's a good question.
Just from the Athletic that I read, just a few casual observances.
Did they kind of luck into this?
As far as the viral nature of it,
Well,
there's no way anybody could really.
Can we just be honest? What the heck else is going on this week?
Yeah,
honestly, I heard you heard the guy filling in Bogish today on whoa, there's nothing going on. I should have called in sick this week. Like nothing says, hey, I don't want to be here other than that.
But the NHL typically doesn't do that. They
yeah.
stack up against NBA and MLB, major events all the time, and then they wonder why their ratings are terrible.
Well, it's why the NBA I think totally missed this. Like if you have to be Tim self-aware to know, all right, we can't beat the NFL head to head. Right. But can we take advantage of those slower times with the NFL? And this should have been, forgive my phrasing here, balls to the wall for the NBA. Like no one cares about the NBA All-Star Game. Am I offending anybody by saying
They
that?
had to go up against the Daytona 500, which was in a rain delay for 7 hours, and the Daytona 500 matters to not many people. It's an appealing thing because it's the Daytona 500. But
if you love NASCAR, that's your thing.
Right.
But it's not broad.
That's a pretty small niche crowd that you're losing when you've got an opportunity to grow something that has really been stagnant for, 15, 20 years. The NBA All-Star Game has not really been a successful thing.
No, it's been bad
a long time.
Since the early 2000s, probably. A better part of 10, 15 years, it's been not great.
We've got G Leaguers winning the dunk contest, and that's just the routine now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm watching SNL 50 years. It's not even crossing my mind to flip over to see if Team Shaq held off Team Kenny or whatever it is. Our phone number 585. That's the area code in Rochester, as if you didn't know. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Our buddy Peter calling in. What's up, Pete?
hey, I'm a basketball guy in a hockey town. Here's where I have to compliment hockey. Like the players of this tournament actually cared.
Mm-hmm.
And so Andrew Bogish on the Infinity Sports Network was talking about KD caring about the Netflix documentary with Team USA. As fans, like, I'm more excited about hockey as a basketball guy because these countries and these players actually cared. That's why we hate the All-Star game, because the players don't care. You got players dropping out right before the All-Star game. They're not giving it their all. I can go to a YMCA on a Wednesday night at 8:30 to watch pickup basketball. I don't need to watch it on TV. So I think what this whole situation is showing is if you're going to do any type of tournament, any type of All-Star game, we just want to see players that care. And this is where Gary Bettman either has to step aside or listen to people. Like, he could take this whole opportunity, just care. Like, when you're going to put something on the TV, when you're going to put something else on social media, just have players care, because that's what's happening right now. I'm out.
Boy, oof. Oh, look at Peter, like, does the roll
Bam.
thing.
Nice.
Bam! Hangs up. I love how it does a little bit there.
It's true, though. Like, if the players care, it makes the fans in the world care, and we watched that happen organically in real time over the course of the last week and a half. We got hockey games that, like, they would have happened regardless, but the players themselves were all in on it, and it made us as fans and consumers of the sport interested in it.
Yeah, Peter, excellent call. Like, if we apply this to other sports, all right, let's start with baseball. There was something kind of similar to this. I'm like, oh, I'm not in. And then halfway through, I'm like, oh, my gosh, there's something to this World Baseball Classic. And you realize.
Oh, it was phenomenal.
Oh, yeah, it was. It was great. And they did it in spring training. See, now baseball's a tough one because we love our All-Star game and the tradition and, you know, who gets voted.
Some of the events in MLB, though, do have, like, a nostalgic factor. Like the Home Run Derby, like, that's, like, a long-standing, you know, they've messed with the format a little too much, I feel like, but still.
Yeah, so will baseball in 2028, Mike, shut down in the middle of the season so that for the betterment of the sport, send the best to the Olympics?
Literally no chance that's happening. The ownership will just riot, you know.
Right.
Saying that aside, maybe.
See, that's the point, though. But if you're trying to make an investment for the future, and if you're looking beyond our borders here in North America into some of these other places, wouldn't you want to say, hey, that was a great sport. Now let's watch more of the best in the world here in Major League Baseball. You're right, though. They're not going to, like, forfeit the gate.
No, it would be great for the game of baseball, you know. Yeah. I think if you look at the NBA and the rise of all these great international players in the NBA right now, that's probably was spurred on by the 92 Dream Team, you know, sending our best over there to take care of business. You know, if we did that with MLB players, send them for Team USA and let them try to win it all. You know,
Tim, I think it's for the NBA, it's pretty obvious what they should do. No more Shaq, Kenny, or whoever you want to. U.S. versus the world. How would that world team? Okay, you would
they
have.
Tried that though, Gino.
They did.
Kind of. I feel like it was like Team Giannis versus something or other. It was like, but it was like all the international guys versus just East West. Man, just go back. They worked forever. Like, what are we doing?
Or maybe just not do it though.
They've got a year to figure it out because they botched this one, and the NHL can take this steam and run with it. But the NBA, like, they're the two things that people care about at this time of the sports calendar. Nobody cares about the NBA right now because of how successful this was. They've got a year to fix it and figure it out, and good luck to Adam Silver. But, I mean, the NHL hit a home run.
The NHL in hockey is going to be great next year with the Olympics. It's going to be a little different with that being over in Milan with the time difference and everything. But you can certainly work it, Mike, where, all right, your gold medal game will be like Sunday night over there, but we would watch it like Sunday afternoon
or something. Yeah.
And the way with timeout would be, I would assume, after the football season. So again, I don't think this NHL resurgence is going to be kind of a little blip. My anticipation is that we're actually going to have a decent postseason. We don't get to enjoy it as Sabre fans per se, but you're going to have all these guys like, oh, hey, yeah, there's Connor McDavid. I get to watch him now. We're over because this always happens. I don't look at a clock. We'll have a sports update coming up next. The voice you're hearing, Mike Underwood, hanging out today, along with Terrible Take Timmy, and some good calls here in that first segment. More calls welcome at 866-4FAN, 866-4326 here on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening.
Update.
2 home games in 2 days this weekend for the Rochester Americans starting tonight. Belleville is the opponent. Amherst head coach Mike Leone on the sentence.
They're a really good team. They defend really well. They're well coached. I don't know who we'll see in net tonight, but they get Marylinen's, I would say top 5 goalie in the league for sure. So it'll be a big test for us. They're fighting for points. Both teams are, so I expect to be a highly competitive game.
Don Stevens, Andrew Mossbrooks will have the call tonight beginning at 7. Amherst then play Toronto 5:05 on Saturday. The RIT men close out the regular season tonight and tomorrow at home against Mercyhurst. The New York Yankees will now allow facial hair, a policy that had been in place since 1976. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Mike, you're on camera there too.
Oh, wow.
It's not kind of. I always found it a little unnerving the first time something's staring at you.
Well, my grandma always said I had a face for radio, but joke's on her because now there's radio on YouTube. So,
Mike Underwood is here. Terrible take, Timmy. Your call's at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. We were talking about, hey, it's a day where if you're a hockey fan, the NHL, they can kind of take a victory lap. And look, if you're the NBA, how do you make the product better? Amon is calling in from the city. Hey, Amon, what's up, buddy?
Hey, how you guys doing? Thanks for having me. Yeah, I just want to weigh in on that. A couple things you guys said earlier in regards to the All-Star game. So NBA should be taking notes right now. I'm an NBA and NFL fan, but hockey did it well last night. One of the comments or suggestions that has been put out there was doing an international versus Americans game. And I personally think that would be a little bit better. So they've tried to mix it up before. I know they did Team Durant versus Team LeBron, and they did Team Giannis versus Team LeBron, where it was just a combination of guys who made the All-Star game, and then they were picked like you're in gym class.
Yeah,
not as much passion with that, But why I say that the international versus U.S. may be more competitive is because international players, they take more pride in representing their country and themselves than I think American players do. Not saying that American players don't play hard, but in minute situations like that, the international players would take a little bit more pride in playing that, whereas America tends to wait until the Olympics to turn it on and win the gold medal.
Yeah, Amon, thank you very much for the call. Appreciate that. Our phone number, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. I would be in favor of that format. I'm going to take it a step further because it's become who gets to host, and it's always, unless it's Vegas, in an NBA arena. Why not move it overseas? You want the setting, you want to make this a good environment.
Alternate, like the Ryder Cup.
Yeah.
When you're there, when you're here.
Yeah, okay, now it sucks what happened to Victor Wembanyama, but gosh, if you when you figure 5 years from now the guy is going to be the best player in the world. Can I at least say that?
Yeah, I would think.
Then have the NBA All-Star game in Paris.
Right.
Have the best. Yeah, you want to become global now. The problem is, and this is the perception we have of NBA athletes, to be oh, okay, you want me to go overseas here for a game that really doesn't mean anything. I don't know how you're going to change that culture with LeBron and everybody.
The sad part is really the NBA, the product is pretty good. Just generally, the actual on-court product is pretty phenomenal. To watch these guys, they're taller than they've ever been, run faster than they ever have, jump higher than they ever have. They're all shooting threes. You got stretch bigs, 7'4", shooting three-pointers, averaging almost a quadruple double sometimes. It's a really decent product to watch night in, night out. They just mismanage it.
Can we squash the Emirates in-season tournament and turn those kind of games into something all-star based? Let's get rid of those. Let's get rid of that thing.
And credit to you for remembering who the titles. I'm all you had to say was in-season tournament. I'm oh yeah, that thing.
Yeah, they changed the name of it, and I remember it because they changed the name of it for no reason. But
do you remember who won this year?
No, I don't. And it's
I know the Hawks were on the championship floor, and I can't remember.
I have no idea. I know the
maybe
Lakers
the
won
Knicks,
last year.
maybe.
The only reason I remember this, the Lakers won last year, and we're friends here on the show with Bart Winkler from the Infinity Sports Network. He did a bit. So when the Bucks won the NBA championship, they had a parade, and look, downtown Milwaukee kind of has like look at downtown Rochester.
Yeah.
It really does. Like a lot of vacancies, a lot of storefronts that aren't open. But like for a parade, all right, it kind of works. And Bart, after they won on a Tuesday night, went downtown and said, "Where is everybody?" It was just like empty for blocks, just kind of taking video at 1 a.m. Milwaukee time. I thought it was a kind of a funny bit, but yeah, that is certainly a good idea. Can you just get rid of that altogether? That didn't work.
Dump that and turn the All-Star weekend into an All-Star week or two and do something similar to what the NHL. I don't know if it has to be international, but if just squash the in-season thing and make the monetary reward something All-Star based and get the whole league back into it like the NHL was.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of that. They've been trying to kick around, could we make some sort of bracket March Madness thing? I don't know how you would do that, Mike, because
that might be something with like an all-star related type deal, but then you need so many players and it's almost meaninless to be an all-star because like
yeah, but you're like, oh, okay, would I rather have a week in Cabo or actually try to win? And like, you're not competing. So yeah, I mean, there are so many holes into this, but can the NBA kind of take a note from the NHL? And can the NHL actually kind of grow? I posed this question to Dennis Bernstein. We'll ask Dan Dunleavy next hour. If you're hockey, how do you keep this going? How do you make sure that you're just making your product accessible everywhere here?
It will be really interesting to see how banged up just these guys were and how ready and back into action they are able to do. Like a lot of these guys that are superstars are going to be healthy scratches in finger quotes. They're banged up. They're hurt. I don't think all of these guys are going to be playing on Saturday and whenever they return to their respective NHL teams. That'll be something that we monitor moving forward. Just like the final success of like the tournament itself was phenomenal, but if all these guys have broken arms and are out for three months at a time, like that's maybe something that you've got to pull back on.
It was a good point that Mike Catalana brought up. It was his point that Dan Fates relayed to us. Another component of this, too, that made the Four Nations thing work, hate. Not real hate, but like, hey, that team, I don't like that team. I like rivalries in sport. It depends on when you grew up as a Bills fan locally. And for us older guys, okay, before it was the Patriots, it was the Dolphins. Yeah, the Dolphins. Like now, way back, the 70s, you went a whole decade without beating the Dolphins. And then when you got to the Super Bowl era, those games, and you had the Dolphin middle linebacker with a double bird. That was that was a different tenor. You don't get that anymore. And then you get to this happy kumbaya place in the NBA where LeBron is handpicking a team and we're going to just have a lot of fun. And then it doesn't matter who wins. It's just we're going to all make money. It's like, that doesn't get me invested in a storyline.
It's not like the Bad Boys versus the Bulls. You know, there's just not that rivalry in the NBA right now. Not the bitter ones, and that's what sells.
Yeah.
The only thing that I remember being cool about the de facto fantasy draft for the All-Star teams in the NBA was like getting picked last and like you got to go out there and show that you didn't deserve to be picked last and you're a multi-million-dollar NBA athlete that is still in that realm the worst. Like that's fun and entertaining to me and it's like inspiring, but also like you're still an All-Star and you're still a millionaire and you're still going to be just fine.
Well, the Pro Bowl that's pretty much dead. It's like, what are we even doing there? They're just going out and they're waving. Basically, it's, hey, we need something programming-wise, so we're going to serve this up. At some point, that's going to – I don't know if it'll go totally away, but the NFL can't do anything with the physicality of that sport. You can't put it in season. That should go away. I think baseball, if you can kind of somehow keep that ball rolling, where could you move that instead of an all-star game – in season, could you move that tournament that you put in March there and actually put the World Baseball Classic in the middle of the season?
Yeah, and then that's, like I said earlier, a tough sell just from ownership perspective of trying to lose not having baseball for a couple weeks in the middle of summer, especially Northeast, Midwest where the weather's
I'm telling
limited.
you, Mike, you say that, but it's every NHL arena was pretty much dark for 2 weeks in the middle of February. Now, they're all making the same amount of games and everything else, but you're extending the season just a wee bit here by doing this. I know there was a little bit of sacrifice for the NHL owners to put this on here. So
yeah, for sure.
Baseball's
but I mean, it's an
tough
indoor
'cause they're
sport.
playing every single day.
Yeah.
From April to October. Hockey, you've got days off, and maybe there's a couple more back-to-backs to make up for the time lost on these 10 days that they weren't playing or weren't active in the NHL schedule. Baseball's tough unless you're scheduling doubleheaders and or shortening the season, and we know they're not doing either of those things.
Let's talk a little football with you coming up next.
Let's go.
Unless you got to go work. You're like, no, this is not work.
I'll
Right?
run one more.
Okay, yeah. Like, let's get your thoughts here on the Bills here and where we should go on this. And it is kind of like it's open phone Friday here in the sports bar. By the way, can I just say about Dan DeLorean? I was trying to be nice to him last night, complimenting his team. Like, in my way, I didn't want to say, hey, Brady to Chuck is a really good player, and I'm kind of jealous. I just texted him. I'm like, hey, trade idea. Rasmus Dahlin for Brady to Chuck. Who says no? What was Dan DeLorean's response to me?
I don't know, like crying, dead emojis.
Okay, like I thought it would be no, or F you, or the crying emoji. Gene, you're drunk. Go to bed. Wasn't even a laughing emoji.
Fantastic.
Okay, Dan, not drunk on a Thursday night. Give me a little credit there, buddy. All right?
He should have referenced the box of wine. I mean, there's just a missed opportunity. Put the box down, Gene.
Put the box down. Walk away from the box. Good one, Mike.
So he's not taking that trade, it sounds like.
No. No, I just...
So
no,
close.
No. His Sens are going to go to the postseason, and we just get to watch once again. Dan Levy, voice of the Sabres, will be joining us next hour. We got time for more of your calls coming up. 866-4FAN. Why not give us a call? 866-4326 here on The Fan, Rochester.
App and the sports leader, the Fan, Rochester.
Amherst looking to make it another win tonight. Belleville, the Senators, are the opponent. That'll be coming up 7:05 tonight. Puck drop with Don Stevens and Andrew Mossbrooks. This is a Sports Bar, Rochester's only local sports talk show, and it's better when you're a part of it at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326. Terrible Take. Timmy is in today. Mike Underwood today.
Yes,
Mike, the pride of Fisher.
Yeah.
Yes. Where'd you go to school? I don't even know.
What's Hilton?
Hilton. Okay, pride of Hilton.
That's right.
That. I think we covered that once. Back to the lines. Rich calling in. Rich, welcome. How are you?
Good. How are you today?
Good. What's on your mind?
Thanks for taking my call. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Awesome.
I'll change that in the future. Hey, I want to weigh in on the NFL. We all agree, and you talked about it just a little bit ago, how strong the organization is, and, especially as compared to the NHL, the NBA, et cetera. But they're starting to lose it a little bit, maybe a lot of it. The one thing, the Thursday night games that they're essentially blocking out unless you pay additional to get those games, the NFL doesn't need that extra money. They're out of their minds. But the biggest thing I want to weigh in on is Super Bowl, the halftime show. We were the embarrassment of the world, not just the United States. I waited 30 seconds, and then I didn't just mute it. I changed the channel. It was that disgusting. It wasn't music; it was noise. It's beyond me how they can put a show like that on a halftime show. There was a caller into a Buffalo radio station that called the sports radio station there that called it a piece of crap, and he just muted his TV, but I changed the channel so they didn't have me as another participant watching it.
Well, this is what I would say about this, Rich, is like, why don't they put on, Metallica or the Stones or somebody like that? It's not meant for that. It's meant to go get a different audience to boost up the number overall and to try to attract new friends. Would you accept that?
But they're doing the opposite. Everybody I talk to either change the channel or put it on mute.
You're respectfully wrong on that. The data would show that's not correct. Everybody in your bubble,
younger audience gravitated towards that.
Younger audience. I mean,
guarantee you that.
Yeah, like it's all a matter of preference and taste. You can't tell me that if you don't like rap music, that's fine, but you can't tell me that America muted that.
Well, you'd be surprised, and it's not just the older generation.
I would say go look at the data. You're welcome to call anytime, but I'm not gonna.
Well, people are gonna stay tuned in just to watch the commercials during halftime.
Honestly, like most of the halftime, Rich, I'm just going. I'm like, okay, it's on. That's the time I'm going to go eat something or
check my FanDuel.
Yeah, or do whatever, or do whatever, or just kind of get on the phone, see what people are saying. Anything else for us, Rich? Because honestly, I respect your opinion. I don't want to come off like that, but I'm just saying though that listen, we can agree to disagree on that.
Mm-hmm.
No, I hear you. I appreciate your voice on that.
All right. Well, thanks, Rich, and don't be a stranger. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I got a 13 and a 16-year-old at home that I haven't seen in my living room at 8 o'clock at night and any given night in many years. And they just materialized moments before the Kendrick Lamar halftime show, and they were losing their minds.
Yeah.
So it's and they're female, and so it skews towards younger people, male and female.
Yeah.
And they're trying to grab, us older gentlemen. We're already watching. We're already sitting there watching TV, doing the thing.
The thing is, and I've seen this, next year the Super Bowl, why not have Metallica? I'm like, again, we're already there.
Yeah, you got us. We're here.
We're here.
Right.
We want your daughter. Here's the thing. You would think I host a sports talk show and family. My daughter struggles to name 3 Buffalo Bills.
Oh.
But she would
Gene.
know who Kendrick Lamar is.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, that's
the thing.
so like,
Yeah.
and you know, to the caller's point, well, all my friends, this is also
That kind of
like-
proved the point itself, though,
Yeah.
right there. Like, it's not for
it's
you're not
for-
the demographic, so of
Right.
course your demographic
Yeah.
is going to share a similar sentiment. Like,
Right.
it's not for everybody. I didn't have an issue with it. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It was just a halftime show. But I also wasn't paying attention to it because it was halftime. Like, I've got other things to do during halftime.
Well, again, I don't mind telling you, like, I'm 54, okay? And I know who Kendrick Lamar is, but that's where having Danger in a Monday. I'm like, what was this all about? And he gave me the Cliff Notes version that, okay, he had this beef with so-and-so.
With
And
Drake,
Serena, and we all know Serena. I'm like, why was Serena Williams out there? Oh, you know, like, kind of, it's just so,
I enjoy
okay.
Kendrick, like, truthfully, but just like when I heard he was hosting the halftime show, I was like, oh, that's weird. He's not really that over-the-top, flashy showman type guy. And then they put it on, and it was exactly how I thought it would be. And, you know,
I mean,
it's what it is.
It's like, you know, like, honestly, too. Maybe he waited till today to call in when Danger wasn't here. I'm just wondering because, like, man, I'm carrying that around for 2 weeks. I totally forgot about it. Like, we move on to the next thing.
I mean,
Rich.
it kind of proves the point there, too,
like,
though.
I'm
Like,
right down the Rich thing. I'm like, oh, yeah, that show. It was 2 weeks ago.
it's people still talking about it. So even if you hated it or liked it, like
100%.
2 weeks later, we're talking about it. So it did something to people. It was fine.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, there's been worse.
And
Like
again,
Been
none
worse,
of us
been
are
better,
the
yeah.
demographic for it. We're not the demo for it.
No.
So it's going to be a different opinion than what like the reality of the situation was.
Yeah, I mean, that
don't-
14 to 25, that thing was like on fire, you know. But in our demo, like, hit and miss.
Right. Like, we're not going to get. Like, that's why a few years ago, they did the Gen X halftime show. I'm like, all right. Yeah.
100%.
Like,
We had Dre, Eminem.
yeah,
I was losing my mind. That was
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
50 Cent's hanging upside down for whatever reason. We're out here doing stuff. But no, that was not it. You know, it wasn't as flashy this year, but, you know.
Yeah, it's look, Rich. If you're still listening, I'm not. You're welcome to call anytime, my friend. But we welcome different viewpoints, certainly on the show. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. That kind of threw me for a curveball. I thought we were going to kind of continue on the NFL. I didn't even get to talk, Mike. Last minutes here, like your wish list for the Buffalo Bills here this offseason.
I want defensive linemen with arrest records. I want mean, bad dudes. I don't want Boy Scouts. I don't need, Eagle Scouts on my defensive tackle, on my defensive line. You know, we need nasty, nasty defensive line. We need Jalen Carters. We
guys
need
who wrestled. No,
I mean, whatever. I don't. Let's go. Enough. We know what it takes. The Tampa Bay showed us now a few years ago when they beat Chiefs. Now, cut 2 this year. Same formula. Rush 4. That's how you beat them.
That's it.
We've known this for years. We can't somehow put it together. What are we doing?
Mike Underwood is part-time fill-in guy here on the fan. Also from On Track Auto Sales.
Sir.
And like when I hear me do the commercial, I'm actually buying a car. But this is like because I got
it's about summer car.
it's like because I got hit. So like I kind of like
Not great.
No, not great. But you're helping me out on that.
Yes, sir.
All right,
and the home of the Chuck Muncie discount, our longest standing promotion at On Track Auto Sales. So you come in and tell us you know Chuck, you're with Chuck, we'll hook you up.
Has everybody got that? Like when you go in, the Chuck Muncie discount?
It's been bantered about. It's been asked about. I'm not going to name names, but it's been asked about,
All right.
and then we know exactly how you heard about it. So that really helps us out.
Yeah, that's because Perry like, told us you heard about us, and no, just say the Chuck.
Just
Muncie.
come on in. Yep, tell us.
Chuck. Who said Chuck?
You're with Chuck, and we know what's going on.
Mike, that's some quality listening on your part.
sir.
But Chuck, by the way, is up there. Have you seen that
I
one?
see him.
Yeah,
I see
that's
him.
like
Respect.
he is knocked out. And he's getting the smelling salts.
That's right. He's still going.
Gift there. So, Mike Underwood, our guest here today. Thanks, Mike.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Be well. We've got Dan Dunleavy, voice of the Buffalo Sabres, coming up next hour. We'll take more of your calls as well. Coming up next at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326 here on the Fan Rochester.
Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
The team with the best record in the American Hockey League, that's your Rochester Americans, are back home tonight and tomorrow. First up, it's Belleville, 5:05, then on Saturday for Toronto. Don Stevens, Andrew Mossbrooks will have all the action here tonight on the Fan Rochester. Chris Brown today on One Bills Live talking about what would it take to keep James Cook.
While it's all well and good that James Cook wants $15 million, this is a posturing exercise to what will amount to a contract negotiation. If the Bills even want to entertain signing Cook to an extension, I think they should. And look, I think the contract comes in somewhere between 10.5 and 12 a year, and I think that's good enough to get it done.
All right, team men close out the regular season tonight and tomorrow night. Mercyhurst is the opponent. The Yankees now will allow facial hair. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, the Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Centering pass, McDavid scores! Connor McDavid wins it for Canada! And Jordan Binnington has done it again inside the TD Garden.
Oh, Gene! Oh, Canada!
McKinnon was just spectacular. He's the Four Nations MVP. And
Jordan Binnington was fantastic.
What the Four Nations tournament has done is it has brought hate back to sports. That's good when you hate teams. There's bad blood between USA and Canada, and that's awesome. That's what's entertaining. That's what makes sports fun.
Mike Danger.
Wow, this is what professional hockey is supposed to look like. Actual speed in the game. Intensity. Physicality. Wow. That's pure, unadulterated passion for a team, and I love it.
Gene Battaglia.
I'm going to say something. I was wrong.
Happy to be here. Happy to serve up some more bad takes.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan. Rochester.
Actually, you're not the one with the bad takes today.
That was a... Man, it's...
No, look, it's all good. 585-8664-FAN, 866-4326. Appreciate our buddy Mike Underwood for stopping in. And remember, if you go to On Track, just say, I want the Chuck Muncie discount.
Chuck Muncie has levels to him that I would have never expected.
See, you have to have like an inside joke like that with your college buddies, right?
Yeah, it's Bo Porter.
Bo Porter.
Yeah, he's my alias because back in the day when he was the Houston Astros manager, and I don't even know if this is true or not, but we took it and ran with it. But there was a viral article
Let's just say allegedly.
Yeah, that he would send inspirational quotes to his players in the morning, and they would respond like, "What are you doing? Go to bed." And so, yeah, it's our again. Don't even know if it's legit. Like Chuck Muncie. Chuck Muncie's stories are true.
They are true.
The Bo Porter article might not be true, but we're taking it as true.
I got to recognize there's like. I don't want to make this like a totally insiders club. I want you to be part of the club here. So, like, what is Chuck Muncie? What are you talking about? Chuck Muncie was a running back in the 70s and the 80s with the Saints and the Chargers. Chuck Muncie, his career ended because he had this terrible cocaine addiction. He freebased cocaine. He was a player that wore horn-rimmed glasses on the field. Unbelievable physical specimen. And this is in the 70s where the Chargers were wearing those loud uniforms and they were just on the cusp. And when I was in college, this is when the Howard Stern show was really starting to take off. And Chuck Muncie, because we've had some great calls him on, and we just had a different viewpoint from Rich. We've had some, good. We had Peter earlier on today. We have time for your calls at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. They're all legitimate calls. When I was doing my college radio show, I'm 18 years old. I don't understand that, like, these are actual crank calls that are coming in where, unbelievably, my friends would fake their voice and then, in the end, somehow connect something over to Chuck Muncie.
That's happened on this air before. I've been here for it.
Yeah, that's what, like if you say like this, I don't understand that halftime show. I really didn't like it. Maybe Chuck Muncie would have that would have been a kind of a bad stretch, but you get the point.
Follow.
Bill's story today, but it's not out of Buffalo. This is on the Nightcap show. James Cook and our buddy Ryan Talbot doing the work for us, transcribing this. Quote, feed me the big bucks. I want to go to chase the highest of the highest, and I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to stand out, and I'm going to what I stand on. I don't want to feel like a cancer at all because I don't like all that attention and all that. That's not me, honestly. I just stand on business and what I deserve. That's it. That's what I want, I deserve. Whoa, okay. First of all, I think this is where I just kind of restate my position. I think you share this with me, Tim. James Cook is entitled to ask for whatever he wants to. These careers are way too short. It's not like Major League Baseball or the NBA where you get these guaranteed contracts. The idea that James Cook being paid $10 million as compared to other sports, that's a bargain, but you do have a cap and is a position that has become devalued over time. James Cook 10 years from now is not going to be playing in the NFL, so he's got to make his money right now. If you think that this is an easy decision for the Buffalo Bills just to write the check for somewhere between, not going to get him at 10 mil, you're going to get him below Christian McCaffrey, or he's going to reset the market entirely. It is not an easy decision because you could alienate the player if you're going to say, you know what, James, we're going to kind of see where we're at. And then I don't know what kind of James Cook you're going to get here in the 2024 regular season if he's knowing that self-preservation or whatever, or is he going to be a guy that's going to be balling out?
What I get what I deserve or is not the same as what you want, though. Like, who decides what you deserve? Right? Like, there's a lot of things that are issues with, like, the running back pay scale. Like, there's problems with it. It needs to be fixed somehow, but it's hard to do because their careers are shorter, but they're also at a very valuable position. But it's because of how cheap they are at the jump of their careers that makes he's expendable because of how replaceable he is just with the position that he plays. He's a superstar talent. He's great.
It is the one position, Tim, where if you draft somebody, you want that player year one. There's not a big learning curve. Okay, do you know how to block? Maybe that's the one thing you got to learn. And if that's so, then you're playing every down. James Cook doesn't play every down. The part of that's by design that you have these other talented guys, but it's a storyline that's only going to get bigger because we haven't really had anything close to a holdout in the Brandon Beane era. And the NFL kind of frowns upon that, but we've had other instances where guys are doing hold-ins or guys are just staying away from the facility for extended periods of time. I don't know how this is all going to play out. And the fact that I don't know how this is going to play out makes it very interesting to me.
Yeah, the Giants they let Saquon Barkley walk. He just won a Super Bowl. Saquon Barkley is probably the ceiling of running back talent at this point. And, like, Barkley had left the Giants, went to a division rival, became a Super Bowl champion, got paid, still probably didn't get paid what he should have. But if the Giants are willing to let that guy walk, it kind of sets the tone for how the whole NFL market is. The top running back in the league leaving to a division rival, and it was fine to them until they won a Super Bowl.
The thing that sucked about that is he was that team. James Cook is not the Buffalo Bills. It's Josh Allen.
Right.
So that's the big thing here is that, all right, in the way where he went to. Our phone number, 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326. Our good friend Brad in Rochester. What's up, Brad?
Hey, speaking on James Cook, you guys nailed a lot of the points already. He's not an every down back. He does have deficiencies in his pass protect. Someone had stated earlier in one of the podcasts that he's only touching the ball 13 times a game. That's his touches. Barkley is touching 20 to 25. King Henry, 20 to 25, and they're getting $13.5 million. How can he ask for 15? I mean, that's great ceiling when he should be only worth 10 because that's what his use is about 10 million. If he's 3 down back and doing the pass protect and not getting off the field, absolutely pay him the 15. But he's not. He's a rotational guy getting only 13 touches, 15 touches a game, and not all running back touches a game.
Yeah, and gosh, all right. So where do you go then, Brad? I guess do you just?
I mean, I would give him a deal where it's $10 million a year, and even throw some incentives in on the back end. Going, listen, if you hit these incentives, in terms of touches, in terms of yards, everything else, touchdowns, all those things as bonuses that he could attain, then he could make it up to 15.
Well, listen, that's great, and sounds like you got something going on there where you're going. I just want to have this conversation. Like, okay, I could see Brandon Beane maybe already doing that, already laying the groundwork. Then he says no. All right, and then
Well, if he
that's
says no,
yeah.
then he's a trade block, and guess what? If you want to get Crosby or Myles Garrett, guess if you threw, we can throw James Cook in with you, and you guys get to try and re-sign him with your cap number and go from there. And this draft has, 30 draftable players?
Yeah.
I'm sure we can find another running back that would come in and be a part of the committee with Davis and Ty Johnson.
Yeah, Brad, appreciate that, and
Yep.
You be well. Have a good weekend. Our number 866-4FAN. A lot of. Here's the thing, like you'd have to find a dumb team in the NFL. Meaning,
I know one.
Right? Who's gonna not only give you a draft pick, but then you have to pay James Cook on top of that? I didn't think the Bills would get a second-round pick for Diggs. They did. It was a surprise at the time. I remember you were the one who broke the news to me, Tim. I'm like, what? Really? That just kind of happened? There might be a team that would be willing to do that. However, with the draft coming up, why not spend a mid-round pick and I get the full 4 years of the rookie contract, and then I could spend the money elsewhere?
This almost feels like it's a self-created issue between player and team. Like, we only know one side of it, and we don't even know the full side of it from the Cook perspective. The team hasn't said anything.
No, and they shouldn't.
At least publicly.
No, and they won't.
And they should not.
No, they should not. Like, you're not going to have Brandon Beane saying, well, what Brad in Rochester said, we did that, and that is that. And you know what? That guy in Rochester, that guy Gene, he doesn't really have a good impression of me. So, anyhow. You're not going to get Brandon Beane going and asking or telling you exactly what was offered. It's not going to be a public negotiation. Maybe some teams kind of might do that. We saw the Giants side of that with Saquon Barkley. That's what made that story so interesting.
Right.
Can we just say this? James Cook is really good.
He is, but
He's
it's
not
the money.
Saquon.
Nope.
He's not Saquon, and he is not Christian McCaffrey.
His ask is fair, but his ask is not going to be met. It's not practical for an NFL team to meet that 17 number. It's just not a thing.
It's a 15, yeah. Phone number 866-4FAN, 866-4326. We're talking about James Cook here.
James Cook is going to be a great football player no matter where he lands. I just don't think that number, that financial number for an NFL team, again, these players deserve more than they're paid for at that position. James Cook is not going to get that, and if he's going to carry on about it, he will be made quick work of by the Bills because they'll just replace him. The position is too easy to replace to make this an issue that carries on longer than it needs to.
Yeah, I mean, would the Bills be served if you could somehow get a second-round pick and draft Cam Scatterbo with that pick? And then you're kind of resetting the timeline.
And there you go. And all that is it's what I said from the jump is you get him on the cheap, you use him for 3 years, and then you do it all over again.
Yeah. On the other hand, though, do you want to – how important is he to the culture of that room? That's part of it that we –
If the guys want him around, they will find a way to keep him around. But he also has to be willing to take some sacrifice financially because it's just not a thing. That number is not a thing.
That's why. Honestly, like what Brad said, if James Cook is willing to say, I'll take the 10 plus incentives, done, to hear Sean McDermott go way out of his way to compliment him, to hear Josh Allen call him Jimbo. He's liked in that locker room. You want to keep guys around. So that's also part of this, too. Like, if Josh Allen calls up Brandon Beane, like, figure out how to get this done, I think we're nearing that part of the Josh Allen era here where he might actually throw his weight around just a little bit. Our phone number, 866-4326. John is calling in. Good afternoon, John. How are you?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.
Great. I'm all for trading him right now, Cook. I mean, he's already starting the Stephon Diggs, the off-season drama, and it's, you know, like you guys said, I mean, if we can get a deal for Crosby, because Oakland has no running game. They don't, I mean, Zamir White, he can't stay on the field. And it's like, it would be a nice fit. We give them our first round this year, next year, whatever they want, and throw him in. I'd love to have Crosby on the Bills. The guy's an animal, and I think he would be a good fit in Oakland. Him and Aaron Rodgers, you know, they could play together, you know.
You've already penciled Rodgers in as a Raider. That would be
that's my guess, but that's a different subject.
Yeah. Yeah, no, John, appreciate the call, and thank you for listening. 866-4FAN. Well, I just said, like, can you find a team that's dumb? No offense, Raider fan. Even you got to kind of admit. All right.
I mean, I know exactly where I stand with the dumb teams, and the Raiders are right there next to me.
Oh,
so.
I'm looking at your team there. Hey, the Browns. Hey, we'd like Myles Garrett. We'll give you our first. And James Cook, you need a running back. Great. Sign right here.
They'll probably find a way to get less than that. So
how about James Cook in a third? Great. It's done.
Whatever happens with Myles Garrett will not be good enough for me. I can already feel it festering. But
the difference here between Cook, I should say this and point this out because maybe it's obvious, maybe it's not. Diggs kind of drove a wedge in that locker room in his final year. Everybody was above board on it. Everybody was very professional on it. And nobody, when he was gone, from what I gather, was shocked. Okay? This would be different. This would be, okay, we understand this is a business. So if you're going to trade James Cook, you have to start here. And in the sports bar, I've just made up a new rule. It's called the Hassan Reddick rule. And you want to talk about dumb teams? Okay, we mentioned the Raiders. We mentioned the Browns. The Jets are a dumb team until they prove us otherwise.
Confirmed.
The idea that they traded for Hassan Reddick. Now, go back 1 year in time. Hassan Reddick, I want a new contract. We're not going to give it to you. Well, then trade me. Okay, we will. Trade him to the Jets for a draft pick.
The I want a new contract never went away, man.
Right. Like, the Jets kind of ignored that part. Like, all of a sudden, because you're a Jet, now you're – it was mind-blowing. So, listen to James Cook. So, some team – that's the part that's going to make this difficult. Some team was going to have to pay for James Cook and give the Bills something that they would want in return. To me,
that diminishes the return in theory.
Right.
It should. I mean, whether or not it does, maybe they do find a dumb team that overpays and then overpays. But if you have to pay a guy, you're going to pay less to acquire the guy, which means his trade value lessens because of his salary demand. So, and the Jets, they're not trading him to the Jets. It's just not a practical thing to trade within the division a great player.
No, that's not possible. But I mean, if Dallas, part of this too is like draft night. Like, does this become like a draft that like A.J. Brown got traded on draft night? Say the Dallas Cowboys, oh my gosh. We didn't get Ashton Genty. We really wanted Ashton Genty. Okay, get Buffalo on. Do my Jerry Jones. Get Buffalo on the phone.
That's a solid pivot, though.
Yeah, like that would be like I could see Dallas being like a team that has always, whether it's draft capital or actually paying the running back. I'm looking at you, Zeke Elliott. They've always kind of made the investment at that position. James Cook in Dallas, I could see.
I could see that working out on both sides of things too, because they have maybe not the player personnel to send over, but they can send draft picks over that would benefit the Bills long term while ridding, not to call him a problem, but while ridding him of whatever potential issue might arise. I'm not going to call him a locker room cancer. He seems far from it.
No,
but if this carries on, it becomes a problem that they have to address. So you either address it beforehand and get something out of it, or he sours on everybody, and then it's just like, all right, let's just get him out of here.
Well, they've got to have that conversation at some point. I don't think it's happened here. Like, what are we doing here? And I think probably Buffalo is just going to slow play this. Like, if some team, I look, it wouldn't surprise me at all if some team has called Brandon Beane like, hey, you know what? We'll take him. We'll give you a 5th-round pick. Like, see, that's something where I could see, hey, maybe you give, like, you call Buffalo, but we're not going to pay James Cook up front. You could always kind of tag him or whatever. Like, but it doesn't behoove the Bills to move him for a bad draft pick there. You want a quality draft pick.
Right. I mean, but again, if the salary demands command the other team accommodating that, it's like we still have to pay him, so we're not going to give you what he's worth because that's not what he is to us. He's going to be paid this. So we have to take from what you get so we can give him what he wants, or whatever that phrase may be.
Let's talk a little Four Nations coming up. Our new friend, Dan Dunleavy, the voice of the Buffalo Sabres, will be joining us. After that, we have time. Look, the participation today has been excellent. Appreciate your calls at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. He's terrible. Take Timmy, the pride of Fairport, Tim Schneider. My name is Gene Battaglia here on the Fan Rochester.
update.
Homestand continuing for the Rochester Americans. 2 games in 2 days coming up, starting tonight. Belleville, the opponent. Head coach Mike Leone on the Sens.
They're a really good team. They defend really well. They're well coached. I don't know who we'll see in net tonight, but they get Marylinen's, I would say top 5 goalie in the league for sure. So it'll be a big test for us. They're fighting for points. Both teams are, so I expect to be a highly competitive game.
Don Stevens, Andrew Mossbrooks will have your call. Coverage begins at 7 o'clock tonight. Then Toronto comes in Saturday at 5:05. The RIT men close out the regular season tonight and tomorrow night. Mercyhurst, the opponent. NFL Jacksonville naming James Gladstone as their new GM. He comes over from the Rams organization. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
They've raised the bar on Rochester Sports Talk. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
There are 2 listeners I will always be grateful to here in the Sports Bar because save face a little bit. Welcome back. Danger's down in Florida. He will be back next week. Welcome once again, G. Battaglia, along with Tim Schneider. Those 2 listeners are Steve and Phil. This was at the Amherst playoff game last year. It ended up being the Game 5, the one they went out to against Syracuse. And when we're able to, we love being down in the atrium and doing like an extended pregame show here on The Fan. And this was last year, and I called up our good friend Paul Hamilton and said, "Hey, Paul, would you go into the game?" He's like, "Yeah." "Would you have a few minutes?" He's like, "Yeah." And not only could I stop by, Dan Dunleavy's, coming here. Why don't he? So Dan Dunleavy, voice of the Sabres, like Paul said, why don't we bring him on? Which was great. And we had kind of a round table. And it was Dan who said, the sign that you're a good show is if people bring you food. And at that point, it was like, there's no food there. But then all of a sudden, these 2 guys, Steve and Phil, and then thank you, gentlemen, appearing with drinks. It wasn't quite food. So we welcome in Dan Dunleavy, the voice of the Buffalo Sabres, who, I think, but that's kind of a sign that Dan was kind of accepting us by needling us for not having the food. Make sure next time, Dan, if we do that again, we'll have food for you. How are you today, Dan?
Well, it was food to some people, right? What was brought to your table. There is substance to it, but I'm great. Thanks for having me on. How's everybody doing?
Dan, we've been talking about it. It's like we've had this kind of like, if you're a hockey fan, we're all sitting up straight, chest kind of puffed out. What did you think of the whole experience here with the 4 Nations?
Well, first of all, if you were sitting down for the game, good on you, because I couldn't, so I stood up for the whole game. We have a 7-inch TV, as you can imagine, hanging above the fireplace here. So I stood up in front of that entire 7-inch television and just stared at it. Just couldn't relax for the entire game. But anyway, kidding about the size of the TV. It's a bit bigger than that. But yeah, sitting down was not an option. It never is. If my team or the game I want to watch is there, I'm bordering on. It's funny because I haven't really shared this a whole lot, but it really stems from being a kid and my dad was a jerk. When my team was playing, he would walk into the room. I don't know if your dads ever did this, but Dad really, he respected sports and he kind of knew what was going on, but he really didn't get into it until he would see me watching whatever game I was, and he'd say, "Who you rooting for?" And he would on purpose cheer for the other team. And I just remember thinking as a young guy, you're a complete jerk right now. You don't hang out with me enough. We don't play catch. We don't do all the things. So all the things that can just – you can look back in your childhood and say, look, this is a reason why I'm a messed up individual. But on top of that, you then walk in the room and you, instead of just sitting down and going, "Hey, who are we rooting for, kid?" It's like, "Who are you rooting for?" And then he picks the other team. So, actually, now the more that I think about it, it could have been a bit of training to work with Razor later in life. Really.
Yeah, actually, like you want to talk about, ball busting, if you will. You work with the king there, Razor.
Yeah.
Dan Dunleavy is our guest. It's also like, who are you rooting for? Well, if you live stateside, you root for this team, or if you live in Canada, you root for this team. But then yesterday we had Mike Leone on, and who's his mentor? It's actually John Cooper. I mean, the lines. This is the fascinating part because these guys are going full out and everything, but Now they got to go back to their day job, if you will, where, hey, we were going at it, but now we're teammates once again. How do you think that's all going to play out here?
Well, it's interesting for you to bring up because I was going through that too. Because when you're working in any industry, right? So you're familiar with the people that you work with. So around a league, whether it's an NFL or NHL, whatever sport, or I'm sure if you're in a band, whatever it is you do for a living, and especially if you're moving around, and when in general you're kind of in competition with one another, but as you make your way around the leagues, and certainly from, for a lot of us that have a background that go back to junior hockey before we got to this point, you grew up with a lot of guys at the same time. So I know from my background being coming out of Canada and doing calling the radio broadcast of the World Junior Championships for 11 years, that was a decade of growing up, not just with Team Canada, who I was calling it for across the Canadian radio network, but I was also there with USA Hockey every day, watching the young, watching the USA Hockey program grow. And certainly it's grown leaps and bounds from where it was even when they were winning in the first tournament I called in Finland back in the early 2000s. Marc-Andre Fleury was in goal for Canada when the States won that game in Helsinki and won that tournament. But now I find myself in a position where, yeah, you're rooting where you were born. You're proud of where you're from. You're proud, like I am, of where I live and work now, and I'm honored and great. It's fantastic being here. So there was a little bit of, okay, these are all great guys on both teams. Like even the guys that are poop disturbers are really good human beings. They're really great guys. So you see the 3 fights in 9 seconds and you're thinking, oh, here we go. This is kind of, part of me is thinking, well, this is kind of silly because this really has nothing to do with the game. But those 9 seconds had everything to do with, I guess, the tournament as a total experience for people who were more outside the game, kind of watching on the peripheral and all of a sudden tuning in saying, all right, there's nothing else going on. Let's watch this hockey tournament. Canada's playing the U.S. That's always a good one. And then they see 3 fights in 9 seconds, and you could have people saying, I've not watched hockey for years. It hasn't changed, right? If they haven't watched a game since, the late 70s or something for whatever reason, they're thinking, well, hockey's not changed. There's 3 fights all of a sudden. And then you have the new viewer thinking, do they do this all the time? Yeah. I mean, we're 9 seconds in, and 3 guys just went at it on skates. And then you have people who are familiar with the game who watched it, like yourselves and me, and I'm sitting there thinking, all right, where are we going with this right now? I mean, it's fun to watch, but I'm thinking, where are we going? So in my head, I thought, okay, where are we going? We're selling the game. We're trying to draw literally a country of casual hockey fans or people who aren't even casual hockey fans. We're trying to draw them into the fight for their attention. So that is, in my mind, what the Tkachuk brothers did in that moment. Sure, they can say whatever it had to do about the moment and bringing the team in. That team was already all in. They didn't need those 3 fights to be all in and up for the game. If that Team USA roster was not up to play Canada in the first game, I don't know why any of them were there. I mean, the tournament was already telling everybody, this is good, right? From game one, from the very first Canada power play, everyone said, whoa, oh, okay, we're in for a tournament here. These guys are taking it seriously and they're the best in the world. So to me, watching that tournament, just the total experience there was so much to it that was really cool. And then to your question, it's taken me a while to get to it. You've got people with different ties to really good people around the game. So it's a lot of the emotions that were, kind of sucked in from a political point of view that I'm not even going to go there, but just fair to say there were people that were upset for other reasons on either side. Right. And it had nothing to do with hockey, nothing. But I think just the way that the guys kind of brought the fight to the moment, it certainly sucked. Canada was already all in, but it sucked everybody in Canada in, and for all sorts of reasons. And for folks watching in the States who are kind of in, all of a sudden they were all in. I mean, they were ready to drop the gloves with the brothers. They were all in. They wanted a piece of someone in a Canada jersey in a hockey fight kind of way. I'm not saying out on the streets, but you know what I mean? They were all drawn into this event. So it is interesting to sit back and watch, okay, well, I'm really rooting for these guys, but I also really don't want anything bad to happen to these guys because we see them on a regular basis, right? You go to Winnipeg, you talk to Connor Hellebuck, you go to Ottawa, you talk to Brady Tkachuk before a game, and they're just really good people, and then it's time to flick the switch and play a hockey game. So I'm not surprised some people found it tough to, maybe admit that, well, I'd actually be happy if Cooper won, or I'd actually be happy if somebody of Canada. I was in the elevator with someone today who was not Canadian, and it was funny. There was a bunch of us at practice, and I was kind of gloating a little bit, having some fun with people. And I think I was at Paul asked me, he said, "How's your day going?" I said, "Paul, sorry, I still can't hear you from the ringing in my ears from all the celebrations." Just doing a Patrick Law line. And then everyone else is going, "Oh, I just wanted to see a great game." And I thought, okay, so you wouldn't be boasting if the States won right now. Let's be honest. That's why I'm boasting at you, because he would have thrown it at me. And then all of a sudden, somebody else in the elevator said, "I was rooting for Canada." I thought, that's not even a Canadian person who just told me that.
But Dan, it wasn't that hockey in a nutshell, though, because in overtime, I mean, my gosh, if the puck is just bouncing in a different direction, I mean, look, credit Bennington, he was outstanding, but it's also great, too, that it wasn't some fluky play that won this game. It was arguably the best player in the sport today that, hey, you can't leave that guy wide open there, and he delivered there. I mean, how great is it that McDavid was the guy who finished it off?
Well, and I think if there's a silver lining, and I do mean this, so especially for people in Buffalo, right? Because the Sabres, there wasn't a Sabre representation on Team Canada, raising the trophy, so that nobody's coming home and you're saying, "Yay, good for you, congrats, that's really good. Now go and help your team win the next 20 or 24 games." But I think, in a way, if you want to peel it back, anyone who's obviously there's disappointment in any loss and there's joy in victory, but take a look at who overplayed that play and left Connor McDavid wide open. And that's the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, it could have been, and he's the same guy, right? Austin Matthews is the guy you just talked about against Binnington. He was the guy that had 3 or 4 chances mano-a-mano against Binnington. And I thought it was game over. I thought it was the way the States are playing in those moments. I thought at some point something's getting tipped, something's getting deflected. And this is the USA Hockey's moment. This is the moment they've definitely earned. This is all them right now. And then all of a sudden you see Marner with a puck, and as soon as I saw Matthews come to him, because I knew there was another defender down low, I thought, who else is out there with him again? Ooh, McDavid took the draw. Sure enough, it's Connor McDavid standing wide open, and he goes high glove, and there was no chance for Hellebuyck to make the stop. So interesting that it's the captain of the Leafs, who Buffalo fans certainly enjoy having a go at. Austin Matthews is the guy that kind of jumped that play a little bit, that he didn't have to jump and wound up leaving McDavid wide open. So, yeah, it was a good play. You're right. It was a hockey play. That's what you wait for, right? The guy, whoever makes a mistake, you're going to get burned. You need your goalie to bail you out. And that was just one that I don't think any goalie was going to get to.
No, Dan Dunleavy, voice of the Buffalo Sabres. Sabres back at it tomorrow night, taking on the Rangers. One more question about that, because this has been kind of the debate here is, okay, that was a lot of fun. Let's do that again. Well, you got the Olympics next year, and you do have this commitment to the Islanders. Dan, what's the balance here? Because, I mean, you want to see something like this. Could you see like a 4 nations, or how many other 8 nations it would be, maybe every other year perhaps? How do you see the future here?
But that is the plan. I mean, that was discussed when the tournament had just begun, I believe, when the commissioner and Bill Daly and the league started talking about that, and the PA. That is the plan. So you've obviously the NHL is getting back into the Olympics, and I think what was really proven with this tournament is that you've got to find a way to beat every Olympics. You just need to have total best on best. Hopefully, other things that are happening around the planet right now can get settled in some way. Lives can stop being lost, and we can get other countries back into the mix. Obviously the elephant in the room in the discussion that is getting the great Russian players back in the tournament, and just having them be involved as well. So the plan is to have every 2 years an international competition that will happen. So that is already kind of in line to happen. See, you will see something like this every couple of years.
Fantastic. With the Olympics, of course, coming up next year in Milan. Dan Dunleavy, voice of the Buffalo Sabres. All right, Dan, here comes the loaded question. I'm just going to ask it open-ended. Sabres, In what reasons did we kind of arrive at where the team is at now? Is there any, like it's not just one thing, I'm sure here, but like this has been a season that for fans has been supremely disappointing.
Well, you can't go 13 and not win a game in a row. Like you can't, right? So, I mean, you ask any team, any general manager, any player, and say, okay, so you're going to go into this season, just so you know, we're going to forecast what's going to happen, and you're going to go through 13 games without picking up a win. And then just try to figure out how you're going to be able to stay within reach of not just being, 12 points out of a playoff spot with, what do you got, 20 odd games to go. Now you've got to climb over another 6 teams that are ahead of you, and you're sitting in last place in the conference. So it's not where you want to be. How you got here, I think it's that run for whatever, we'd have to go back, and actually it would be an interesting project and probably a painful one, but a learning one, is to kind of watch all those 13 games again and just pick about, what is it specifically in the play that got away from this team that they went in that kind of a slide. So for the Sabres right now, it's simple. It's if you want to have yourself, you can still play meaningful games. I will say this: the Sabres can still play meaningful games by the time you get to the last. And I think I heard Lindy mention this a couple of days ago. By the time you get down to the last, let's say we're going to have to say last week of the season, because there's a bit of you're going to need the entire runway here to get back into that kind of mix that you want to be into. But if you go on a run of any significance, and I understand what someone who is not going to have the positive light on this is going to say, well, we haven't seen it this year. But if it, for whatever reason, happened now, and you went on a run and you picked up, say, a run of 10 consecutive points and got yourself to 59, while a couple of teams ahead of you kind of stalled and only got 4 points, so you've climbed 6 points up. So now all of a sudden you find yourself sitting 6 points out of a spot instead of 12. It's a much different discussion with 2 weeks left in the season, right? I mean, the reality still is a very tough one to achieve. But now all of a sudden you're in a position where you can at least play games that really do mean something. So I think Lindy put it best. The playoffs start now for Buffalo, and it's a heck of a grind to expect that out of everybody. But that's where they put themselves, and we'll see how they start against the Rangers tomorrow. And then also, just so everybody's aware if they're not, the schedule coming up in March, I think we have a day off, 1 day off a week pretty much for travel, and then it's tons of hockey. There is no breaks. There are no breaks coming up here for this team. So you start on Saturday, and I think you got one midweek before you go to Carolina, and then it's pretty much every other night you're going somewhere or you're playing somewhere.
Yeah, which may mean a lot of up and down between Buffalo and Rochester, and you hope everybody stays healthy, I guess. You're a busy guy, Dan. Like, how in tune, how much have you taken in of Amherst hockey this year? Because we've got something special here happening so far.
Yeah, it's going well. I see that Devin's got some good numbers up there. I see that the big fella's been standing in front of the net, putting the stick on the ice and putting some goals in for Rochester. I know when I saw Murray's goal totals, first thing I did, I talked to a couple of people there. I said, okay, so how's he doing this? I mean, is this someone who's kind of figured it out and can come up here and start, parking that big bus in front of the net and start tipping some in up here? So I'll tell you one guy I really liked when he came up here. Wasn't here for long this time, but I thought that Isak Rosean has certainly matured. And, that's a guy's game that when we saw him earlier, at least personally speaking, I'm not speaking for the team here, I'm speaking for me, you could see that there was still a lot to kind of figure out, a lot to learn as far as not his talents, but just where to be on the ice to use his talents at his best ability, and then also do it on a nightly basis in a very tough league. But he looked a lot more mature and a lot more, closer to being ready. So it was nice to see him. Yuri Kulik, of course, has been outstanding. So it's been fun to watch him kind of take the reins and show everybody what he can do up here. But, yeah, I'm very aware of what's going on in Roch. I didn't get a chance to get down to a game this week just due to different things going on here with, it takes one appointment a day in Buffalo. I mean, you can't make the drive. So, but, yeah, it's looking really good for Roch right now. So I'm happy for Coach, happy for the players. And winning is important, as we know, right? It doesn't matter what level you win at. You have to win. You have to get addicted to winning. And then when you get up here, you have to kind of spread that addiction through work ethic. And that's a big takeaway, too, from this tournament. I won't go on too much more, but everyone's talking about Sidney Crosby. Everyone's talking about Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, how they are at a different level. Well, they're at a different level for one simple freaking reason. They never stop working at it. They never stop, ever. You ever see these guys at a rink, and even when everyone else is gone from the rink or they're in the summer, and Crosby and McKinnon and Connor, but Crosby and McKinnon specifically, they're working on little plays that, it's not different from Josh Allen or when he was playing Tom Brady, and I'm sure Mahomes. The greats never stop working at their game. I'm sure somewhere Josh has got a football in his hand right now, and he's throwing it to somebody. He's working on something to be one of the greatest in the game, and that's what this tournament proved you have to be. So for all the young guys in Rochester that are doing well, great. Keep up the work. And then when you get here, keep showing everybody how hard you work, and maybe it pays off for you.
A couple more with Dan Dunleavy tomorrow night, which you'll hear on 96.5 WCMF. As for every Sabre game, that will be the Sabres hosting the Rangers. Dan, as far as one guy that we certainly have a lot of respect for here in Rochester, Mike Leone has done a great job. How's Seth Appert doing up in Buffalo this year?
Doing well. I enjoy talking to him. And I'll tell you obviously his connection with Lindy is great, and it's also strengthened by, and because Lindy's a smart guy, he's been around the game. I think when he came in here, he understood, look, Seth Appert's going to be part of this. I'm sure they when they got to meet, and if they didn't have some kind of mutual understanding or kind of acceptance of how they view the team going forward, the working relationship wouldn't be what it was, because it's really good. What I like about Seth, and I'm sure Lindy feels the same, is his familiarization with the young players. So he already knew J.J. Peterka. He knew Yuri Kulik. He knows Rosé when he's called up. He knows guys like Quinn. He knows all the young guys that Lindy, quite honestly, when you're an opposing coach, even within a conference, or certainly more of a conference and division being in New Jersey, you still see each other 4 times a year, and that's it. The rest of it, you're only focused on your team, and you're watching some video of the team you're about to play the night before. That's it. It's just nonstop. It's go, go, go. So he comes in here. Seth Appert is the one that Lindy certainly can speak to this better than me, but I'm sure any coach would. You're leaning on Seth for what are his tendencies? Because I know what I want to drag out into him. How do I get this out of him? Because this is what I see from him now. This is great. You worked with him previously. How do I get it out of him? And I've even had those chats, Rob and I both have, with Seth about some of the players. And Yuri Kulik's play right now in the National Hockey League, we had a talk with Seth just before the break. And I said, look, you obviously were aware this is a talented player, but what is he doing now that he was already doing in Rochester, or what is he doing now that he wasn't doing in Roch that he has to do now in order to improve his game? And did you see that you had a player there that would realize these types of changes would have to happen to have success here? And immediately he started listing off all the things. He said, he already had this in his game, right? A, B, C, and D. But he's realized really quickly that he had to bring these next 3 steps to make it work at the NHL level. And that's where you have to give the player the credit, as well as the coaches who prepared him to get to that point. But you give Yuri credit for realizing that, hey, someone tells me I've got to do this more to have this kind of success. Could have been a discussion I had in Rochester a year ago. Doesn't matter. But now he's in a game and he's seeing that, I get it now. If I don't do what I was told, then I'm not going to get the scoring areas I want to get to. So Seth has been great for that. A great resource for Rob and I to have conversations about these players coming up that this team is going to rely on, certainly not for this year, but for many years to come.
Yeah, and Dan, last one here being, if you're listening to a Sabre game and, okay, maybe it's not going the team's way, you do get the banner between you and Razor, and that just makes it a lot of fun. Sometimes you got to listen carefully, but I love the little digs back and forth. My question is this. How big is his head now that he's in the Hall of Fame, the team's Hall of Fame?
Well, I could have fun with you and take some digs, but in all honesty, Rob's a very humble guy when it comes to this kind of stuff. I think I think he's comfortable in saying that when you look at all the names on the wall, that he belongs there. Rightfully so. He's earned it. He played a style of game that was definitely there and necessary in that era of hockey. It's still necessary in this era that many times and many players have come up and have conversations with him about, wish you could be in the lineup tonight just so I'd have a little bit of more room or space or whatever. And we're talking past players and present players.
Yeah.
The thing I find that Rob is, and I'll end kind of on this, is every time we travel to another rink, it doesn't matter how old the player is or what city we're in. And I notice it because when we walk by, they all notice who he is. They all kind of give him the look. It's one of those. I don't know. You guys ride bikes, motorbikes?
I don't do the e-bike thing, but yeah.
No.
No.
So I don't have a bike, but I always thought if I get a bike, I have to learn that wave that everybody does, right? Like this kind of little.
Yeah.
So I always joke when I'm driving in a car. So what's the wave for a Ford or a Kia or a Toyota? What do I do? But it's just one of those things where it's kind of a nod or a look of respect, and they know that that's Rob Ray, and they're quite aware of what he did and what he means to this organization and really around the league, to be honest with you. So he's earned everything that he's been rewarded with here lately, and I'm really happy for him and the jabs and the fun that we have during the game. We talk about it beforehand because obviously it's not that long ago. It's year 12 for me, but still to be, coming off a partnership like he had with RJ, you just had to kind of be patient and wait for our own chemistry to be what it is going to be. And there were many times where Rob would say something that, quite honestly, I wouldn't know what to say back. I thought, well, where are you coming from with that? And where am I supposed to go with it? But it's come with time. It's taken time. And I think I might have mentioned it to you when I sat with you. Sometimes the best way to get back at Rob is when he delivers what he thinks is a great punchline or a great one-liner is just a layout.
Just get him second guessing. Love that.
Just exactly, because at some point he'll say, and he does it, he'll say, am I talking to myself down here? And then that's the punchline. Right, so he can take the shot and he'll say, oh, yeah, well, it doesn't matter. You can't see up there because we're way up high. And sometimes it's, you're trying to pick out certain numbers in whatever rink you're in. He goes, well, yeah, no, you can't see up there. But he'll say something. There'll be a dig. And, yeah, I have found that sometimes, because we talk about just laying out, and RJ's talk about it all the time, just let the game breathe. So I thought, sometime if you throw enough of a dig at me, I'm just going to lay out and let it stink a little bit, and then I'll see what you come back with.
Timmy, was that not the great impression of Razor there?
You nailed it.
Yeah, you nailed it. That was actually pretty good. Dan, really appreciate this. And hey, hopefully, maybe barring the Sabres not making a miraculous comeback and get into the postseason, maybe we'll see you out at a playoff game here at the Blue Cross Arena.
Oh no, you'll see me there for sure. I at least get out to one or two. At least a couple playoff games. If we're done and the guys are going, definitely love coming down, whether it's with Bone or just, somebody else, any of the other writers that are driving in from Buffalo. I'll definitely be down at the rink for a playoff run. But, yeah, start tomorrow, get a win, get up to 51 points, and, then you start just kind of picking off people ahead of you as fast as you can get here for Buffalo, and you'd be 4 points behind a group of 3 teams, and then all of a sudden – you're a bit closer. So that's the only way you can look at it. Just be positive and go get it.
Yeah, one step at a time. Begins tomorrow night. Rangers, again, on 96.5 WCMF, the voice of the Buffalo Sabres. Dan Dunleavy. Dan, this is a thrill. Thanks for doing this today.
No, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I've been bored for 2 weeks, so I need as you can tell, I've needed somebody to talk to. I've been rambling on here.
We're right on time.
Anytime. Thank you, Dan.
Okay, guys.
All right,
cheers.
Thanks. Dan Dunleavy, who's really good sport there.
We are not right on time, but that's fine.
No, we're never right on time. But
that was awesome. I mean, I had some questions I wanted to ask about Bennington, but the flow and that was also good that I became like a captivated listener instead of actually involving myself within it. That was great.
He's really good. And I'll say this. He's following a legend. You realize how tough that is?
Well, I'm following you, so yeah,
we're not going to do the Razor thing here. Yeah, no, it's like it really is tough. Like to kind of, we all knew that like at some point RJ would retire and Sally RJ's not with us anymore. but he does it in a different style.
Yeah,
that's what I like. And you listen to him and Razor, they can have fun. And if the game's not going your way, like, why not have fun with it?
You have to, especially as he's the Sabres announcer. The Sabres haven't been fun. They're a fun team to watch at times, but his entire tenure has not been thrilling hockey. They've had some exciting games, but they've had plenty more duds. And that was a great listen, and that was fun to be a part of.
Yeah. Sorry we didn't get your Bingman.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We can talk about it later in the next hour.
Oh, there's a tease. Your calls. Boy, we've had some excellent calls today, too. So if you were trying to get in earlier, you are more than welcome to give us a call right now at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. We've been talking about James Cook. We've been talking about, this resurgence of hockey versus whatever the NBA put out as their all-star game. We haven't even gotten to the Yankees here in baseball, and lots of stuff going on here today. Again, 866-4FAN, our phone number. This is the Sports Bar here on The Fan.
You're listening. An Odyssey Sports Station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
2 home games in 2 days this weekend, starting tonight for the Rochester Americans. Belleville is the opponent. Don Stevens and Andrew Mossbrooks will have the call tonight beginning at 7. Tomorrow, the puck drop at 5:05. Toronto coming to town. Chris Brown today on One Bills Live on what would it take to keep James Cook.
While it's all well and good that James Cook wants $15 million, this is a posturing exercise to what will amount to a contract negotiation. If the Bills even want to entertain signing Cook to an extension, I think they should. And look, I think the contract comes in somewhere between 10.5 and 12 a year, and I think that's good enough to get it done.
The RIT men close out the regular season tonight and tomorrow night. Mercyhurst coming to the Gene Policini Center. Jacksonville naming James Gladstone as their new GM. He comes over from the Rams organization. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan in Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Centering pass, McDavid scores! Connor McDavid wins it for Canada! And Jordan Binnington has done it again inside the TD Garden.
Oh, Gene! Oh, Canada!
McKinnon was just spectacular. He's the Four Nations MVP. And
Jordan Binnington was fantastic.
What the Four Nations tournament has done is it has brought hate back to sports. That's good when you hate teams. There's bad blood between USA and Canada, and that's awesome. That's what's entertaining. That's what makes sports fun.
Mike Danger.
Wow, this is what professional hockey is supposed to look like. Actual speed in the game. Intensity. Physicality. Wow. That's pure, unadulterated passion for a team, and I love it.
Gene Battaglia.
I'm going to say something. I was wrong.
Happy to be here. Happy to serve up some more bad takes.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan. Rochester.
Again, to all our viewers watching on YouTube and Twitch, it says Mike Danger. That is not Mike Danger. Wave hello to the camera there, Tim.
We've received a promise.
Yeah.
Maybe not a promise. We've been told that I'll have a name the next time I'm on. So I think that also implies that there will be a next time. I'm so thankful and grateful.
Well, the latter I can guarantee. The first part is beyond my control. It's like when you ask for things like heat.
Oh, the heat! I got hand warmers today. Actually,
You got hand warmers.
I was gifted hand warmers by a nice friend.
67. This tells me, but at some point during the show it was at 61. That's what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, this is comfortable, I would say.
Yeah, it's not bad today.
Today's tolerable. I'm still cold, but it's
40 on Monday.
Can't wait.
Oh,
it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be a spring day. Longing for softball.
You know what we call the 5 o'clock hour here, Tim? We call it happy hour. Sometimes Danger, if he's in the good mood, we used to have the fridge underneath there, and then somebody complained or something, and they took it out. I don't know, but you've got a long night. You're not allowed to crack a cold one.
No.
And quite honestly, if you're watching now, you see me wearing the Tiger gear. That's because we have that. Tonight I'm on Pittsburgh Sportsnet.
Look at you.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Well, it's because Mercyhurst, I guess, Erie, PA. They're picking up the call. But yeah, Tigers and Mercyhurst. That'll be a lot of fun. So you got your choice tonight and tomorrow. Amerks and RIT both in action at the same time. And, boy, this is a fun time to be a hockey fan. 866-4FAN, 866-4326 is our phone number if you want to kind of jump in. And what we saw last night was sometimes things don't live up to the hype. That did. This just in. That drew 9.3 million.
That is a massive number for
Let
the
me
sport
make
of hockey.
Sure I get this right. How
That is an
Bucci.
incredible.
Okay,
an incredible
so
achievement.
like, what does that mean? 9.3 million as far as a number there. No, so for hockey, and again, we all kind of Bucci Cross had this. Okay, higher than any NHL game ever.
That's good for the sport. I mean, If you fail to grow from this, that is an indictment on. I mean, Bettman's probably on his way out shortly anyway. But if they don't grow the game from this tournament, something drastic has to happen at the very top of the National Hockey League.
Now, another report says that drew in 10.1 million. So that is the best since 2014. Boy, that's Okay, that is actually from Saturday. All right, so there you go. I like the numbers are great. Like any numbers, you can kind of carve it up any other way. The question is, how do you capitalize on this? If you're another sport, how do you look at this and say, hey, maybe we should actually kind of go at that? Now, we'll just acknowledge this, that what's going on in the world played a role in this. Let's not pretend that it didn't. You come to the sports bar to talk sports, and that's what we're going to keep it to. But we just have to kind of acknowledge that. We don't have our head in the sand, right? So that's also part of this that kind of fed into this. And when you, I mean, how could you not? You're tuning in last night, like, wait a second, I've heard of "Oh Canada" how many times? That's not how it goes. Oh, she changed the lyrics. Okay, fine. That's your country. Sing whatever you want to sing. On that.
There's got to be two different, right? I mean, I'm not Canadian, so I don't know exactly how it works. But if that's what works, then it works.
No, it wasn't that. I would go into this and we'd be veering off into a different direction, but it's not about the pronoun. No, like what you're saying is, yes, that's not the one we grew up with. If they changed the pronouns there along the way, I don't know what year that happened. Might have been 2016, 2017. No, this was, we've done this how many times? Like, oh, Canada, my home native land, true patriot love. And only we command, she said. Gotcha. Like, oh, okay. Well.
Okay.
That's it.
It all makes sense.
But here's the thing. Like, most of us, we were there to kind of just watch the hockey game. So
that's right.
That was your 5 minutes. I thought it was really cool that they brought out Eruzione. That was kind of cool.
That was cool. And in the
Goodrow jersey, yeah.
Like that tied it back into what this tournament started as for Team USA, was to honor who would have been on the team. Goodrow would have been on that roster. And, that was a nice touching moment prior to the game. It's a bummer they didn't hammer it out, but
so many people were like, "Oh my gosh, this is the best Open ever," and I thought it was kind of cheesy, kind of like taking the Herb Brooks speech from Miracle and then splicing in things from today. I don't know.
Well, I mentioned it yesterday. Like, to me, that the from the movie, like, it's silly. Like, splicing it in, if they had, and again, this was 45 years ago, so they don't. But, like, if they had that locker room speech, like,
45 years ago tomorrow,
spliced into today's roster, would have been incredible. But with the movie, like, it was still cool, I guess. But
look, if you like Miracle, if you want more, like, okay, many of you watch Miracle, but if you can search this out, and last I looked, Tim, you can find this on YouTube, i.e. for free. The HBO documentary on the Miracle on Ice. How it brings you back to it brings you back to the time, like, wait a second, here, college hockey at the time was either Massachusetts or kids from the Midwest, and you had two sets of groups of kids who just, by kids, I mean, they were, 18, didn't like each other just based on that. But what the coach Brooks did was he gave them a common enemy in camp. That was him. Like, the coach became the enemy. He worked them so hard that everybody had to bond that way, and all of a sudden you weren't caring about whatever rivalry you left behind between Boston College and Minnesota, whatever matchup it was back then. You were all just trying to get through the day working for this jerk. And then, it never kind of dawned on the guys till after that. But what always kind of struck me on that was that you get to the end of it and these guys win, and then that's it. And then they have to kind of go on with their lives.
Right, and then they go back to hitting each other.
Well, no. They go back to their lives. Like, but the point is, like, in the doc, if you watch a doc, like, they go back to, some went to the NHL, some went to the private sector, some, like, kind of did that. They never, that last time they're in Lake Placid, they've done reunions time and time again. They never had a full reunion after that one moment.
And I mean,
it was always one
guy.
guy.
That's pretty poetic, though. Like, that's it. Like, that's the pinnacle. I mean, yeah, it's awesome to get together or whatever, but, like, for a lot of those people, that was their crowning lifetime achievement, and you kind of just want to leave it, right? Like, leave on top, stay on top. You'll never achieve more satisfaction than that moment in that time.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, who capitalized the most off of that was Mike Eruzione, the captain, just for the fact that he's up there at the end pointing to the little podium, and everybody kind of gets up there on the little podium. If you picture that from 1980, and again, you didn't have to grow up in that era to understand and appreciate that story. And where today we have, yes, we have this political angle to this, Four Nations thing. It's not like it was back in 1980. Trust me on that one. Our phone number, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Other things we can talk about here on the show today, and I just kind of found this interesting. It's hard for me to imagine Sunday Night Baseball not being on ESPN. Or just a random Tuesday night game not being on ESPN.
Yeah.
ESPN has always had some sort of playoff games. Heck, they're the ones who actually pushed for the expanded playoff with the wild card round. And now you're going to read the thing that was a mutual parting ways. Well, actually, the story is this. It was actually ESPN opting out of this, which I would just kind of ask the question, why? Don't you need programming? Weren't you making money off of this? The answer is probably no. But when you hear Rob Manfred kind of go off on, well, we weren't getting the coverage, but guess what? They're not going to cover you at all. That's the way ESPN kind of operates. If you're not working with them, the NHL for decades was invisible. So they'll cover it. They might mention it in SportsCenter, but when it comes to all their shoulder programming, forget it. But in this day and age, does that even matter? Does baseball even care? They should view this as an opportunity. Like, okay, Sunday Night Baseball, who wants it? Netflix? Like, we have to rethink this differently. Is this an opportunity for baseball to actually kind of reach a younger audience?
Yeah, ESPN still has a stranglehold on a lot of things sports-related, but with so many different avenues now for you to digest literally any sort of entertainment content, MLB is going to be just fine. It's just, for me as the consumer, it's like, oh, I have to now remember I've got to go to whatever streaming service it may be. Like, they'll be fine. ESPN, ignoring them isn't going to make baseball irrelevant. Like, baseball itself is going to be fine and probably make ESPN maybe not crawl back, but I don't know if this is it for them. Kind of like the NHL is back now with the network as well.
This is the crazy part, Tim. Like, if I can name, like, if you're a Yankee fan, and I know so many Yankee fans, my father-in-law, I want to watch every game. You can't. Or you would have to really pay. Like, okay, can we count all the platforms that you let's see if we can do this off.
I don't know if we can get to all of them, but we can try.
So yes, that's number one.
Correct.
You still have ESPN this year. Okay, that would be that. I'm going to count them as two different ones because you might have the Saturday game on Fox, but you also might be on FS1.
Sure. So that is for. We don't have FS1 in here. We do have Fox. So.
Yeah, so that kind of sucks. Yeah, what do you term it? The cable,
the poor people
cable. Yeah, poor people cable here at Radio City here. Okay, so that's ESPN, FS1, and Fox. We're just getting started. You've got Turner, so you've got CBS.
Sure.
You have the Amazon game that pops up every once in a while. Mm-hmm. You have Friday night on Apple, which is going to be a couple games. And then I forgot about this one today, and it's almost like I'm, with my second hand, I'm putting up my middle finger.
We're running out of numbers, running out of digits.
Yeah, digits. Eighth one, the Roku game. Sunday mornings on Roku.
Yep, and I believe, and I could be wrong, I think Peacock has something.
Peacock, yes.
So we've got
9.
A lot of, and that's just the ones that we named. There are probably more.
But that's kind of who owns everything, and I think that's part of the problem with baseball right now is that, okay, you really should just pick a few partners.
We didn't even mention MLB Network. I mean, they kind of pull from their whatever, like it would be but sometimes.
No, but they'll do an original game every once in a while.
Yes.
You might have that exclusive game. All right, so let's just say 10. 10 different platforms potentially if you want to watch every Yankee game. Guess what? You're not going to see it. Who can keep up with that? Where is it? How do I get Roku? How do I get Peacock?
Right, if you don't have a Roku, you can't get Roku.
No,
so it's like you have to have, I mean, for the Amazon thing, you can have Prime or whatever, but if you've got like the Fire Stick, you don't have a Roku. So you can't do both unless you purchase both. And at that point, you're looking online for somewhere to find it not legally.
There was one platform that died quickly, and I was happy for it. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Not yet. I might be familiar, but I'm not sure which.
They were putting games on Facebook. Do you remember that?
Oh, God, yeah.
It was terrible.
The AHL still does that every once in a while, and that's a different kind of league, but not going to Facebook to watch hockey.
No,
or
it's like
anything.
baseball. It was like, okay, I'm going to watch this game. That's in Phillies. And then, all these thumb emojis. And I'm like, get out of here with this. Stop.
Twitter has some sort of, not for baseball, but I know that for wrestling, they have some sort of exclusive content that streams on whatever their thing is called, the Spaces or whatever it might be. Like, there are so many different avenues for people to get what they are looking for that it's almost overwhelming. Like, we got to 10, and we might be missing more than what the number is.
It's an interesting decision by ESPN, and they must have their reasons, Tim, because if you had to say what's the second most popular sport today, like if you went back 3 years ago, you would say, oh, it's the NBA, right?
Yes.
And I'm not counting college football because probably it's the NFL and college football, but let's put college sports aside for a second. I honestly think Major League Baseball you could make an argument for based on the fact that, number one, it actually grosses more overall than the NBA. That's a fact. It really does. You have more games, you have more this. It makes more money in that regard. Number two, whether it's right or wrong, we have this perception that the NBA is a sport that has issues. Baseball has their issues too. Like the Dodgers, some people are like, oh, this is going to be great for the sport. I'm like, is it? Is it? It's going to be like everybody versus the Dodgers, it feels like this.
Was that your impression of me? Because that's how I feel. I think it's great for baseball. I see what you're saying with baseball
it's great for the sport. I'm Tim Schneider. No, I can't do an impression of you.
That's
buddy.
okay.
Yeah.
We've got I would still probably put NBA 2, but right now, like today, it's baseball just because of how crappy the NBA has. Like, their All-Star break was completely irrelevant, and I'm not a huge NBA guy personally, but right now, I don't give a crap about the NBA. They lost their superstar young talent in Wemby. The All-Star game was a farce. The NHL dominated them.
I think we have LeBron fatigue.
And I'm a LeBron guy. Yeah, like bailing out on LeBron's got LeBron fatigue.
You think of LeBron, like, okay.
Then he dropped 40, but
yeah, let me put my son on the team. I don't fault him for doing that, but you know what? Like, that doesn't get me. But it was something that, through way of Dan Fates, that Mike Carolina brought up. It's the fact that you don't have these rivalries anymore. Like, that's part of what worked with the Four Nations. It's like, oh my gosh, these teams really don't like each other. It was real. Like, we have BS detectors. That was not staged. That was all right there, and they were going hard at it last night. It was a fantastic one. What is the rivalry anymore in the NBA?
I can't name. I mean, you'll always, like, perpetually, you will have the Lakers and the Celtics, but they play on so far of a different coast that you can't legitimately consider them rivals anymore, in the sense that the regular season doesn't adhere to the Lakers and Celtics being legitimate rivals. You've got that just over the course of time, and you will always tune in if you're an NBA guy for those two teams to play, but it doesn't really matter to a casual fan. There are no heated rival. It was, for a while, it was the Cavs who stunk and whoever LeBron was playing because he left them. But then he came back, and it's all better.
The Warriors had this era domination, right?
Yeah, that was a complete stranglehold of a dynasty.
Yeah, but who's the team that they really disliked and they really had to get by? Heck, Oklahoma City. You and I watched a playoff game. We went out for that. And then their star joins them the next year. What is that? Our phone number, 585-866-4FN. I give you the area code, look, as if you didn't know. 866-4326. Tom in Rochester. What's up, Tom?
Hey, guys. Love the show. I've actually spent too much time thinking about this.
Huh.
Obviously the NFL is just in a different category, stratosphere, universe. Number two, I got college football. The importance of almost every game, even with an expanded playoff, your interest is going to be there. And I think the problem is, like anything else in life, the regular season for all of these sports that have more than 16, 17, maybe 18 games now, it's just too much. And it just breeds this complacency. I think part of the problem in the NBA, when you talk about rivalries and playing hard, there's so much money on the line. right? That who's going to work that hard? Who's going to foul hard anymore? I mean, this is, you're looking at guys with super max deals, $300 million. You deprive a guy of that. I just think it's these unwritten rules, and we saw it in full force and effect. I think in the NHL, you still get some good regular season games in the NHL, but nothing like we saw. And I'm not even talking about the concentration of talent that we saw in the Four Nations, but just the passion, going after each other, playing hard, fighting for pucks.
Yeah.
I just think it's a huge problem in these sports with dilution of talent, coupled with incredibly long, almost meaningless regular seasons, where any team that's halfway decent makes the playoffs, except seemingly for the Sabres. It almost defies logic how long they've gone. Right. You wouldn't even bet against it if you knew. I mean, it's impossible not to make the playoffs in the NHL over a 5-year span. But apparently the Sabres are really good at it. So that's just my 2 cents. I think when you get to playoffs, though, the NBA can turn it on, especially in the later rounds. The NHL always turns it on. And I think, just as a corollary, the decrease in even a passing interest in college basketball until the NCAA tournament. You can't compare it from 20 years ago. No one talks about it.
Nope.
Oh, they give it lip service, but no one cares. No one cares anymore about the regular season in college basketball. Unless you're a diehard fan of a team or an alum, you're not watching Oklahoma State playing some other Big 12 school. Who cares? Watch something on YouTube and educate yourself.
Fantastic call, Tom. Like a lot we can kind of discuss.
Yeah, that's a great point on all of it. Really,
all of it. I'll say this. Let's just start with baseball. He's like, all these sports are too long. The fact that, hey, we're past the All-Star break and the Atlanta Braves are 2 games below 500, but then they go on a tear and they win the World Series. The Mets last year, Tim, late June, a joke, but then they turned around. Like, that's how long baseball is. The team, mind you, that is hot, and the Phillies were red hot in April and May, and they made the postseason, but they weren't the hottest team. So, look, it happened with the Giants, where as a wild card, that's kind of a symptom, like all these long years. Like, it's not the team that is the best. It's the team that is the hottest that's going to kind of, take over. Your point about the NHL is, and that is the one sport I would say that, all right, what we'll watch here coming up this weekend, all right, it's entertaining. But then you get the Stanley Cup playoffs, like, what the heck is this? This product is so much better than it was watching back in February. And then I always kind of draw it back to the Sabres. I'm like, this doesn't even look like the same league. Is this the league the Sabres playing? You're kidding me. Like, that's how much these guys have to kind of pace themselves, knowing, okay, when you get to the games that you absolutely have to have, that's what the sport kind of looks like. And unfortunately, we can't go in reverse. We can't say, yes, everything would be better if we did less of it. What league is gonna take less in their next next TV deal? What owner is gonna say, yeah, we're gonna cut the gate revenue in half? It's we're the consumer to blame for all this.
Yeah, if I could get a 140 game baseball season with not expanded playoffs but extended playoffs, I'm all in on that. But most of the league would be out of the playoffs, so they're not making money. It is all financial based, and it's a bummer because we've lost a big quality has dropped off because of the oversaturation, just because of our initial demand for such product. Like 82 game NHL season, probably a decent number, but that means if you are having a great season as a player, you're playing 100 to 110 hockey games. That's a lot over the course of 9 months. That's almost too much, you would say.
Yeah, it's there was a lot in that call. Like the idea that college basketball, you can go this back, okay, like the idea that you used to have teams that would stick together multiple years. You used to have the big name brand coach that you would actually watch for the coach. What other sport do you tune in to watch the guy on the sideline? Like, okay, you still do that with Patino maybe? Like it brings you back to a different era.
People are doing it with Hurley now, but yeah. I think for the wrong reasons.
For the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I mean, to touch on the college basketball thing, part of that might play into the fact that Syracuse just isn't what they used to be. So locally, we're not digesting the product because there's not a high-quality product to indulge in.
Yeah, I mean, it would be...
But the product itself as a whole, from a national landscape, like the transfer portal, you've got guys playing at 5 schools in 5 years now, and before you could only transfer once and you had to sit a year. So the NCAA itself kind of decimated most of college athletics outside of football. Football is going to thrive forever because we are gluttons for that product. But the rest of them have taken a pretty massive hit to fill the pockets of the football schools.
Look, as the NHL all of a sudden, we're going to get to the end of the postseason and be like, my gosh, the NHL has passed the NBA. The answer is no. This is decades of mismanagement in the NHL. You start with the New Jersey Devils neutral zone trap to a lockout that cost you an entire season. I mean, you lost a generation there. And then you make the wise decision to choose TV partners stateside. They don't even exist anymore. Versus Outdoor Life Network. NBC Sports Network does not exist anymore. Like, if you're not getting your product in front of people, how can they sample it? That's why last night was actually so huge. And it just, if you're putting that next to the, okay, we all want to say, oh, ESPN is dead. They're going down. Look, they're not what they used to be. But for baseball, the ESPN to pull the plug on Major League Baseball, I'm just thinking, careful what you wish for here.
Yeah, it's phrased as mutually parted ways, but I think MLB is probably better off with ESPN walking out on them at the end of the day.
See, you think that, but what's the plan? I want to hear the plan.
Well, there's 10 different places they can go. Somebody will pick them up. Even if TBS becomes the
destination.
Or TNT,
yeah.
like TNT doesn't have basketball anymore, so they can fill that. I mean, granted, it doesn't always flow with the season of play, but that's something now that their wallet is open now because they're not paying the NBA. They can take out on MLB.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We'll see. We've got to get the shots in the sports bar. We have time for more of your calls. Look, everybody's been great today. If you missed any part of the show, Dan Dunleavy, who, man, we had questions lined up for him. You had questions. I didn't get to half of them. I mean, he was just fantastic. If you missed that, you can download the Odyssey app and listen back to it in the 4 o'clock hour. I always kind of joke that, Tim, that is going to be the app that eventually, someday, gets either, or maybe both, Mike Danger and I fired.
Never rewind on it.
No, never rewind, but there.
But you can.
But look, it's all right there. You can all right, like that was back in the day. Oh, can I hear a tape of that? No, we don't keep tape. Nope, it's
all
you're
gone
out there. Yeah, that's it. Gallows humor in the sports bar. 866-4FAN 866-4326. It's the sports bar in the Fan Rochester.
You're listening. update.
Busy hockey weekend. First for the Rochester Americans. Tops in the American Hockey League. The Belleville Senators coming in tonight as the opponent. Head coach Mike Leone breaks it down.
They're a really good team. They defend really well. They're well coached. I don't know who we'll see in net tonight, but they get Marylinen's I would say top 5 goalie in the league for sure. So it'll be a big test for us. They're fighting for points. Both teams are, so I expect to be a highly competitive game.
Don Stevens, Andrew Mossbrooks will have the call tonight beginning at 7. The Amerks then home tomorrow at 5:05 against Toronto. The RIT men close out the regular season tonight and tomorrow night. Mercyhurst, the opponent. Jacksonville naming James Gladstone as their new general manager. Gladstone coming over from the LA Rams organization. Gene Battaglia in the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Odyssey is your home for all the audio that matters to you. Download the Odyssey app today to listen to the sports leader, The Fan, Rochester.
So if you're watching right now on YouTube, your beard is much better than mine, Tim. Like, you've got the color, you've got the full growth. I just go with the kind of the scruff there. But you know why I do that, Tim? And this is, just keep this up. It's one of the executive producer wants. She likes the scruff. I keep it. There you go.
I do need a little bit of a trim, but
okay,
I know where this is headed.
You know exactly what. How would Aaron Judge look with a beard? Garrett Cole look with a beard? Like, part of the Yankee uniform for years, and I'm not talking about just the pinstripe, that was actually mandated that these guys had to be clean shaven. Yes, you could grow a mustache, as Don Mattingly once did. I believe Nestor Cortez had one, but they would never allow any sort of growth in terms of a beard. Now the Yankees will allow, and as part of their press release, well-groomed beards. I guess, does that mean, see, the way I would picture this, well-groomed Tim Schneider. Justin Turner, not well-groomed.
Probably not. No. I'm curious to see who is like the grand decider of well-groomed.
It's like, who's going to push it?
I could find. Actually, that's a good call.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're out of the lineup. Why? He's like, you got hair on your face. Like, what? What? Okay.
Yeah, legitimately, like, can you imagine that's going to turn, because we see our stars and like, hey, Josh Allen was kind of baby-faced, and then he kind of grew a beard, and actually it kind of works, right? Like, what if Aaron Judge decided to do that?
He's going to look like a goofball at first because we haven't seen it before.
I'm
sure that maybe in the offseason these guys kind of let themselves go. And, like, Devin Williams got traded, and one of the first things he said was it's going to be an adjustment. And then they showed a photo of him and a couple other players, and he definitely still had I understand it's still spring training, so maybe it's a little more lax. But you could kind of see it coming just based on that one photo that the Yankees put it out there themselves. And then the announcement came a day or two later.
So the story was like this. George Steinbrenner in 1976 taking over the Yankees, and this was his rule. He had a military background. He thought this would instill discipline in a team that was pretty young at the time. And 76, they ended up getting the World Series. They would be swept by the Reds. And as the story goes, Greg Nettles is the third base. No, it's Lou Piniella. Lou Piniella just up. He's arguing with Steinbrenner. And he goes to this card. You want this. Jesus had a beard and long hair. Why can't we? Steinbrenner. Okay. See that pond? Walk across it and then get back to me. Like a great one-timer, like George Steinbrenner. Gosh, missed that guy. Hot uniform talk here in the sports bar, and it feels like righting a wrong here. The Kansas City Royals' third jersey is the powder blue, but the Royals from the back of the day, they wore powder blue pants to go with the tops. That was the road uniform. Well, it's going to be the case again, but they're only going to do it, Tim, at home, which, okay, but still that doesn't quite feel right. The Blue Jays also do this at home. Shouldn't both these teams be doing this on the road?
I think that there should be a free-for-all with the uniform. Like, you know what? It's a lot with Oregon, but they have quite literally like a million different uniform options. Give me that for baseball. Like, just put on whatever. Everybody has to be wearing the same, kind of. Put on everybody has to be wearing the same, but wear whatever you like. Let the starting pitcher that day decide what our uniform is, or like the player of the game from the night before. Like, this is what we're wearing, guys. Like, why does it have to be uniform, quite literally, to home, road, and then like a specific day alternate? Just let him have it all.
Well, you have the home, the road, the alternate. You have the City Connect, which most teams, I don't think the Yankees are. There may be another handful of teams that haven't gone that route yet, but most have the City Connect. Even the Red Sox are apparently going with a different City Connect this year. Like, okay, like fantastic, but yeah, anytime you can throw it back a little bit, it feels good. Juan Soto is a good teammate, Tim. How do I know this? When he signed with the Mets, like one of the things he was negotiating, hey, I want my number 22, which, okay, this is sort of a gray area because 22 belonged to Brett Beatty, but Brett Beatty, he wasn't good enough to stick with the Mets all last year. He went down to AAA Syracuse. All right, so how do you handle this? Well, pulling up today at Mets camp was a Chevy Tahoe, the Chevy Tahoe being a gift from Soto to Beatty for that number 22.
That's an awesome gesture, a very nice, expensive gift. The best thing that they could have given him was a permanent spot on the 40-man roster because he's not meeting the expectations of what the top prospect was supposed to be.
No, it's not too late for him.
He can find a way, but
I think
being guaranteed a 40-man spot for the next year or two would go a whole lot further than a car.
Listen, I understand like $765 million, okay? That's wealth that I can't wrap my mind around. Juan Soto is a wealthy man. If you want to buy somebody a car, that's like me buying you a beer, Tim. Maybe not to that extent, an analogy, but you get my point.
Yeah.
Why is it that athletes are so married to their numbers? I just find it like, hey, I'm going to wear this. Like, you can't wear a different number? What does that even mean?
Yeah, it's fascinating how people get attached to certain things, numbers and other things notwithstanding. But, I mean, even the Dodgers did it. Blanking up, Rojas gave his number to Roki Sasaki and was like, just be a good teammate and we'll call it even. I'm sure that Sasaki will return the gesture in some way, but the request of just be a good player and a good teammate is fair enough for me.
Back to the Yankees. They did win their spring training opener today. Legends Field over the Rays, 4-0, which, who was really the home team there?
The Yankees technically were the home team.
Yankees were the home team, but it's like,
yes.
But the Rays now. This is going to be their temper. Hey, get used to the digs here, guys. The story here, Marcus Stroman getting the win. He only pitched one inning, right? But he was, bitching about something, but he ended up showing up in the end. Paul Goldschmidt, RBI double. The Yankees have 4 former MVPs on the roster, Goldschmidt being one of them. If you're not familiar with Paul Goldschmidt, Yankee fans, he's a guy, I'm not going to say is like Stanton, because Stanton always gets hurt. But in this regard, he's like them, where when Stanton gets on a tear, that's a lot of fun. But when he's not, he's not. Goldschmidt, in my opinion, is kind of that same way. When he starts hitting, this is a lot of fun. And sometimes when he's not, it's tough.
If you were a Yankees fan who liked Mark Teixeira, you're going to like Paul Goldschmidt. If you're a Yankees fan who didn't care for Mark Teixeira, you're going to get Mark Teixeira out of Paul Goldschmidt. Probably even more so at this point in his career.
Remember when the biggest person in sports media, and this might have been ESPN generated, was LeVar Ball? There's a time where he was dishing out takes, talking about how he could beat Michael Jordan one-on-one, talking about how his 3 sons would all play for the Lakers, to the point where LeBron was saying, keep your name out of my mouth. LeVar Ball even had his own shoe company, Big Baller Brand. Just bringing this up today, LeVar Ball had his foot amputated.
So he doesn't even have a spot to wear his own shoes?
Oh, damn, that's awful.
I didn't take it off.
That's awful. You're horrible. Wow. He's 54. No reason for this. I mean, it could kind of speculate. They just termed it a serious health issue. I'm like, yeah, I would think getting your foot amputated would necessarily be termed as a serious health issue.
I wish him the best. I'm glad he's out of the public light.
I did have a friend. He was an advertiser here. He's no longer with us. But he was battling diabetes and, lost his leg. And it's like, hopefully it's not that for Mr. Ball. 9 games in the NBA tonight. Doubleheader on ESPN has the Knicks in Cleveland, followed by Minnesota and Houston. And look, if you're ready to say, all right, I want to wade in back in the NBA, ABC has action for you. Lakers and Nuggets tomorrow night, 8:30 Sunday afternoon. Knicks and Celtics, 1 o'clock. Dallas and Golden State after that. I'm sure that's not exactly what ABC signed up for with Dallas when they put that game there.
It absolutely isn't, but there are rumors that Davis is on the mend and might be debuting soon. They might do it just in time for a national game.
Wow. How
Funny
about that?
always works.
Yeah, how about that? Fun show in the sports bar we had today. We want to thank Mike Underwood for stopping by on a Friday. We want to thank Dan Dunleavy, voice of the Buffalo Sabres. We didn't even mention the Sabres. So the Sabres tomorrow night, that is going to be the first game back from the break. They're taking on the Rangers.
Yes, that'll be on 96.5 WCMF.
Yeah.
The Amerks are here.
Yeah, as that will be part of it. And then the Amerks tonight and tomorrow night, I'm going to go skedaddle over to RIT here in just a little bit as the Tigers taking on Mercyhurst. So if you're going to that game, just try to say hello. Always love talking to people. Monday, Danger is back, where I'm sure, look, if he starts talking about how great Florida was, and, I'm not for it. So, and I'm sure if you're listening right now and you're driving home, you're not for it either. I'll try to reel him in. I promise you. So I'd like to say, my name is Gino Taglia, filling in on the Mike Danger Show here today. Again, Monday, we'll talk about, you know what next week is, Tim? It's the NFL Combine.
Can't wait.
Oh, my gosh. We're going to be already talking about what's going on in Indianapolis, and we start to dig in and talk about who we want the Bills to draft. Coming up next is the JR Sport Brief, followed by Amerks Hockey taking on Belleville at 7 o'clock. We appreciate you for making part of your life listening to us here on The Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports